Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
Well, welcome everybody to tonight's committee live stream on the Auditor General report for the ArriveCan scandal. What the hell happened today? Today is Monday, and I know Mondays are ridiculous, but I swear it's been like 5 days worth of work today. It was the day job, and then the video that Pierre dropped this morning. I guess technically this afternoon, because it was right after the committee meeting, which we haven't seen yet. And and then all hell broke loose on the internet.
And we did have some trouble with that video of Pierre that we dropped earlier today.
Yeah, that was weird, eh? Like half the video was just missing. So that raised some eyebrows. But thankfully, we were able to get it back up as literally that was as quick as we could get it back up, thanks to YouTube's processing and all of that stuff. So thank you, everybody that had watched the first half of it. And you're so amazing, because so many of you rewatched that first 8 minutes because you know how valuable the actual watching of the entire video is. So thank you to all of you who did that. And thank you to the rest of you that watched that video. That video got traction really, really quickly, and it was great because we were able to get the truth out to a lot of people and get Pierre's view. Now, we later came to find out Jagmeet also did an interview out front about the ArriveCan scandal and the Auditor General's report, and he was spitting fire as well. And then all of that culminated in question period, where it was an absolute bloodbath for the Liberals. The Bloc, the NDP, and the Conservatives all lined up, and it was just a free-for-all full court press on the Liberals when it came to question period and ArriveCan. And wouldn't you know it, Mr. Trudeau was conveniently absent from that.
How about that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody is surprised.
No.
So we have 800 viewers so far and 420 likes. Let's see if we can get that up. And we can get this going. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping things. I did want to thank our buddy Clyde Do Something for promoting us on his video earlier today. It was very, very nice of him to do that. So thank you very much, Clyde. And for those of you that haven't seen Clyde's channel yet, though I'm pretty sure you have, go and check it out. It's worth a watch. So thank you very much, Clyde, for that. As we say, we are on Team Canada, and Team Canada's objective is to get this Liberal government out of office. And boy, oh boy, it feels like we're close, doesn't it? Feels like we're close.
Yeah, I would be very surprised, if this was not the thing that took the government down. I mean, I think this is the beginning of the end. I really do.
And some other people were commenting on X / Twitter and on YouTube, and they were just saying this feels different. This feels different this time. And they're saying, I don't know what it is. And I said, I think what it is this scandal people can directly relate to. SNC-Lavalin, it's hard to kind of relate that to the average Canadian, because we're just going about our business, and yes, it's obstruction of justice, and yes, it's a criminal offense, but how do you relate that? This is now $60 million of our taxpayer money, and I'm pretty sure all of us could do something a lot better with $60 million than spend it on a stupid app that never worked.
So $60 million is more than we pay to be part of the monarchy every year.
There you go. So something to consider. That's like 100 Ferraris.
That's a lot of money.
So anyhow, let's get to some of the early contributions from everybody. So thank you very, very much. Humble Tracker with a $5 super chat. Good to see you. Thank you very much. If you want total security, go to prison. There, you're fed, clothed, given medical care, and so on. The only thing lacking is freedom, right? Small price to pay, I guess. Not. So thank you very much for that. I want to welcome to some new members who have purchased memberships from us. So it's Bradley Gagne, Dave Stephen, and Pam PD. And thank you to Goko Donnie with 10 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Very much appreciated. Big Nickel check-in with a $5 super chat. Thank you very, very much for that. And I'm sorry, that was from Gokodani again, and the message is Big Nickel check-in. So hey, that's Sudbury. I know that. That's the Big Nickel mine out there. So welcome to the Sudbury crowd. Thank you very much. Let's see what else that we have up here. I want to make sure that I'm getting everybody before we get into this. We have Rita Hammond with a Northern Perspective membership. Thank you very, very much. And we have Geese with Teeth with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much. Trish Proul with a $5 super chat. Clyde, do something advertised this show. Now, everyone, hit that like button. Absolutely, Trish. Thank you very, very much for that. It's very, very much appreciated. Peter H with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Everyone just handed the memberships tonight. Thank you so much. Memberships for everybody. Thank you. Thank you. And Repeat in BC with a $5 super chat. Drinking game every time. Everyone drink every time the AG says the word blatant or glaring. Have fun. Uh-oh.
Oh, we haven't seen this yet. So, I mean, if she says that a lot, like, please be careful. Don't give yourself alcohol poisoning.
Have your water. Have your water.
Yeah,
it's
there
fine.
you go.
Louise A. King, 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so, so much. Ravi Sadis with a $5 super chat. 60 million, just about enough to buy a small bungalow in Toronto. Well, maybe half of one.
Yeah, at this rate.
But isn't that the truth? Okay. So let's get to the rest of them. The Colonel with a $2 super chat. 6,000 a month reduced to 3,200 a month because of Trudeau. You got it. Keith with a $13.99 super chat. I haven't watched any news on this all day because I've been waiting for the stream. Thank you both for all that you do. Thank you very much, Keith. Well, then go back and watch our video that we dropped earlier after this. So we are up to 1,200 viewers with 711 likes. Let's get those likes up, people. This is a really, really important event. And I don't want to understate that. This is a significant event in the Trudeau government.
Yeah, this
today.
could bring the government down, like all the way down.
So, like, this has shifted the whole mindset of Parliament. We saw it today. So this is worth as many people tuning into as possible if they haven't seen it, and if they have, then you get the Northern Perspective political commentary. Take it or leave it as you will. So, okay.
We also like to say thank you to Taylor Made with a $25 super sticker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All of these are just they're so appreciative.
And as some of you have remarked, unfortunately Barnaby was not able to join us tonight, so you're stuck with me. So I'll be monitoring the chat. I know you guys are going to be awesome though, so...
Yeah, so Fox and I have to pay a lot more attention to other things. She has to pay attention to Barnaby's things, and I have to pay attention to Fox's things, and it's going to be an interesting stream. So it'll be fun. But Barnaby is allowed to have a life outside of Northern Perspective, for sure. He deserves it. Gokodani with a $10 super chat. Single malt Islay and beer. Let's go. Okay. Jarsha with a $10 super chat. 60 million is what 30 average Canadians make after taxes in a lifetime.
Wow.
And probably around what 100 pay in taxes. Imagine telling 100 people their lifetime tax contributions went to that piece of
garbage.
Sugar. So
that's insane when you break the numbers down for us like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's something else. And Peter H. with a $2 super chat. Please explain to people how to accept gifts, please.
Oh, sure. I'll pop the link in the chat. As we discovered with another member, I think it was on last Wednesday's live stream, some profiles cannot accept them. If you should see a box pop up underneath the gifted membership that says, let me see if I can find an example. Pretty much it just says like, oh, here it is. You could be a lucky recipient of a Northern Perspective membership with access to exclusive perks. Allow gifts. If you don't see that, then you may have the quote-unquote wrong profile.
The bug.
Yeah. But otherwise, you should be able to click on that Allow Gifts button when it pops up after someone's donated, and it should turn the gifts on for you. I'll also drop the direct link so that you could turn it on now and kind of get ahead of the curve. But if you're not seeing that box and you're wondering why you can't turn on gifts, it could be that you have what's called a brand profile. versus a personal profile. Unfortunately, this is not something we're really able to help with because it's a YouTube thing, but that's kind of like an explanation.
Okay. So I'm going to get to the last two super chats, then I'm going to stop. And remember, as with all of our committee live streams, just tag Northern Perspective tonight instead of Barnaby, and Fox will take. Well, actually, she's not going to be taking any questions, as it is a committee live stream night. So we will only be reading out the super chat. So if you do have any questions, please send a super chat in, and we will read those during the break.
Yeah,
so
we're anticipating that this is going to go on for at least
a couple hours,
3-ish hours. So that's why we're just doing the super chats tonight and not general questions.
Okay, so I'm just reading Nilik's and Diane's, and I'll get to the rest at the first break. Nilik with a $2 super chat. Waited to watch. Let the show begin. Amen to that. And Diane Sylvain with a $5 super chat. My mom is in the hospital, and I told her that Trudeau's government is about to fall to cheer her up at the beginning of the end. Well,
I hope your mom feels better.
That should cheer everybody up. So thank you very much for that, Diane. You know what? There's two left. I'll just get to them. Matt Bar 182, a member for 1 month. Thank you for the membership. Let's go. Absolutely. And Jag Bando with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you all for that you do, Cypher and Fox. Your detailed and objective analysis is a breath of fresh air. You make it easy to parse through all the garbage, talking points spewed by these politicians and mainstream media. We do whatever we can to help. And Jerry Savoy with a $2 super chat. I was
getting pissed probably
after Dominic LeBlanc in the house. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay,
all right, let's do this thing.
Let's get into this, everybody. Let the games begin. And let me get the right thing up, and off you go.
From the Office of the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, Auditor General, nice to see you again. Andrew Hayes, nice to see you as well, who is the Deputy Auditor General, and Sami Hanush, Principal. Nice to see you as well. I just will pause for a second. Mr. Desjardins, are you comfortable sitting where you're at, or would you like everyone to move a little bit to the right? I don't mind taking a minute now, because
sure.
you have several speaking orders.
Let's do it.
Could I just get everyone
so
to kind of move? It's just a little easier. You're well, or you're welcome to go to the far left and very good, thank you. Ms. Hogan will begin with the statement, and once folks are settled, I'm just going to wait 10 seconds here. Very good. Ms. Hogan, you have the floor now for your opening comments, and we'll turn to questions from the members. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I am pleased to be here today to discuss our audit report of the ArriveCan application, which was tabled in the House of Commons. I wish to acknowledge that the lands on which we are gathered are part of the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Our audit of the ArriveCan application looked at how the Canada Border Services Agency, the Public Health Agency of Canada, and Public Services and Procurement Canada manage the procurement and development of the application, and whether they spent public funds in a way that delivered value for money. I will discuss our findings, but first, I have to say that I am deeply concerned by what this audit didn't find. We didn't find records to accurately show how much was spent on what, who did the work, or how and why contracting decisions were made. And that paper trail should have existed. Overall, this audit shows a glaring disregard for basic management and contracting practices throughout ArriveCan's development and implementation. Si les organisations gouvernementales
Government organizations needed to be flexible and fast in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, but they still needed to document their decisions and demonstrate the prudent use of public funds. In this audit, we found disappointing failures and omissions everywhere we looked.
Okay. You know, given what Pierre said, we kind of expected something like this, but she's not mincing any words. And, you know, this is what we hoped we would hear by someone independent, right? I know there was some concern from people over whether, you know, this is even going to reveal anything. If the Auditor General was just going to come back and say, everything's fine, that's fine. Trudeau, where's my check, please? But that's not happening. Just by her early statement, she's already said, we have found problems everywhere. And she's not saying that they found, I will say, mistakes. Mistakes is different than disregard. Disregard is willful intent to skirt around process. So that is misconduct by definition. So that's something to really consider here. And I'm not going to say I like where this is going, because this is awful that they found all this stuff, but I appreciate the fact that it sounds like we're getting to the truth finally through all of these months of ArriveCan investigation.
And we're not quite 600 likes behind, folks. Please hit that like button for us. It pushes the stream out to other Canadians, and we need everybody that we can to watch the stream and see what our government is actually doing with our tax money.
So, right before we move on, got a couple of housekeeping things to address. So, we have Jim Rollo, member for 1 month. What strategy could Justin Dirty use to blame others or skirt from the scandal? Look forward to what is exposed with the $425 million mil on the passport. Yeah. So what he could try and do is say, well, these are government agencies and ministers aren't directly involved. That's about the best he could probably do. The problem is the minister is responsible for their agencies, and this is already the angle that the Conservatives and the NDP and the Bloc are taking. They've already got ahead of this. Remember? Be first. So they've already gone ahead of this and said, well, listen, how is it possible that this has gone 750 times over budget that the minister didn't do anything? That they knew and didn't do anything. So they're already getting ahead of this. So Justin's not going to be able to weasel his way out of this really at all. Because if you recall, when PSPC, the Public Services Procurement Canada team, testified, what did they all say? All procurement rules were followed. You remember that? That's what they said. And what did Cameron McDonald say? All procurement rules were followed. What did Utano say? All procurement rules were followed. What did Mindone say? All procurement rules were followed. That's all we heard ad nauseum. So if all procurement rules were followed, it's either all of the rules are designed for the system to be inalienably corrupt, or all of them are lying, and there's corruption everywhere.
No, maybe it's both.
It's possible. Well, you can't be lying if you follow the rules. I don't know. Anyway, it's a dog's breakfast. This has just exploded today. Humble Tracker with 10 gifted Northern Perspective memberships and another 5 after that. Thank you so much, Humble Tracker, for your continued support. Let's get those likes up, people. We're at 1592 concurrent viewers and 1125 likes. Let's get on with it.
Most concerning was that the Canada Border Services Agency did not have complete and accurate financial records. Because of this, we were unable to calculate the exact cost of the ArriveCan application.
Wow.
So, okay, initially it was what, 54 million they were saying.
Yeah.
Now they're saying 60, and now they're saying that
don't
might not
know.
even be accurate. It could be higher.
Yeah. Well, I think what they're saying is it is higher because they have incomplete information.
This is insane.
This is ridiculous is what it is. Andrea Krapule, I hope I said your last name right, with a 699 super chat. I have never followed the news. Then I found your channel. Now I'm hooked, and I can't wait for your updates. Keep up the amazing work. You guys rock. Thank you so much for that, Andrea. Pink Emo Slayer with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much, sir. Mike Bamlett, a member for 2 months. Mr. Trudeau, I want my money back. Oh, and Fox and for Canada's power couple. Thank you very much for that, Mike. And Goko Donnie with another 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Everyone's being so generous tonight. And Peter H chiming in with another 5. Give these guys some love, man. Like we have the best community out there. Thank you so much, everybody.
We really do.
By piecing together information available, we estimated that ArriveCan cost approximately $59.5 million.
And there's the 60.
There was confusion right from the beginning. From April 2020 to July 2021, we found that the Public Health Agency of Canada and the Canada Border Services Agency did not work together to establish each agency's responsibilities for ArriveCan. In this accountability void, neither organization developed and implemented good project management practices, such as developing objectives and goals, and budgets and cost estimates.
That's a big problem, everybody. So, project management is a term that gets thrown around, and it's very important. Sometimes it can be one of the most costly aspects of a project, but if you have a good project manager or project management team, it can be worth it. It can actually save you money. So what do project managers do? Well, they developed what's called a project plan. What's in a project plan? The project plan is essentially the guide and the list of tasks and the responsibilities by every single person that is assigned to a project. So if you're going to be approaching ArriveCan, what you're going to be doing is identifying who your decision makers are in ArriveCan, who your key stakeholders are, who your technical team is, what your budget is, who's authorized to make that budget, and you're going to meet with all of the people that are going to be working on this project and identifying what are the specific tasks that they are actually having to do on the project. And then what they're going to do is allocate time estimates for each task so they can make sure that everybody is on task. They also make sure they understand what are the dependencies between the tasks, because sometimes task A needs to be done before task B can even start. So they are essentially the traffic cop, but also I would say the security guard and police officer, all the above, because if somebody's not doing their job, it's the project manager's job to actually approach them and say, hey, you're not doing your job. I need my deliverable. Get it to me now. But they're also responsible for the project budget. And they provide reports to whomever they are responsible to in terms of the project sponsor who's accountable for this. And if the project seems to be going over budget, they have to provide reports. And then decisions can be made and conversations can be had. So if there was no project plan, then there's not going to be any project objectives. And if there's no project objectives, then nobody knows if this project was even successful in the first place. So this is just a recipe for disaster, and it's no wonder that was the product that we got. So, a couple things to get to before we continue.
Humble Trackers let us know that if we hit 1,500 likes, she's going to drop some more gifted memberships in the chat, and we'll add some as well. So please, if you haven't yet, hit that like button. You could win a membership to Northern Perspective.
And ladies and gentlemen, we're at 1,737 concurrent members. I think that is a running record now. So thank you, everybody who has joined the stream. So Evangelist with a $10 super chat discovered you guys today and dig your work. You're a breath of fresh air. Much success to you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Welcome to the Northern Perspective universe. It is going to be a lot of fun having you here, and I hope you you enjoy the content like everybody else here does. Richard Weeb with a $2.79 super chat. Thank you very much for that. LGBTQ, let's get blackface to quit. I can get behind that
I think
acronym.
he's going to. I think this is going to drag down the Liberal government like all the way.
Chloe, welcome to NP supporter. Thank you very, very much. Kev Doug 69 with a $7 super chat. You know this is just a scratch on the surface of a very big iceberg. Yes, indeed it is. We've been talking to some of our insiders, and they said you ain't seen nothing yet. And we're like, what? So this is going to blow open in a very, very big way very, very soon. Kaylee Bailey with a member comment. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. And Goko Donnie with a $5 super chat. No gears, no moose, and no time off. Cheers, Cypher and Fox. Thank you so much. And Peter G with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much, everyone. You are all too generous. Thank you. Let's get to it.
In our examination of contracting practices, we saw little documentation to support how and why the Canada Border Services Agency initially awarded GC Strategies the ArriveCan contract through a non-competitive process. Only one potential contractor submitted a proposal, and that proposal did not come from GC Strategies.
We found evidence that GC Strategies was involved in the development of requirements that were used when the agency later moved to a competitive process to award a $25 million contract for work on the ArriveCan app.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm stopping so much, but like literally every 60 seconds she says something incredibly important. And it's not surprising. We knew this was going to be an important day, and this is crazy. But before I acknowledge anything, we just hit 1,800 current viewers. Thank you so much for everybody for joining. That is another Northern Perspective record, and we're at 1,344 likes. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so why is that important? I'm sure a lot of you know why that's important, but I'll go through it anyway. So when an organization is going to be soliciting bids for a project that they're going to be working on, it's called an RFP, a request for proposal. They are requesting for proposals, literally, from external companies to submit their proposal as to how they would satisfy the needs of the project and how much they would charge you for it. And then the organization looks at each of those proposals by each of the organizations, scores it accordingly, and says, okay, these guys are a little bit more expensive, but they are going to be able to provide or meet most of our requirements, as opposed to these guys, which are cheaper, but they are going to be satisfying less of our requirements, right? So it allows them to make a decision. Now, the problem here is that the Auditor General is saying that they found evidence that before this RFP was even put out to tender, that GC Strategies and the CBSA were in cahoots building the RFP in the first place. Why would they do that? Well, the only reason that they would do that is so that GC Strategies can say, here's all the requirements that you can put in that would limit it to only us being able to bid. That's called collusion, everybody. Like, that's not allowed. So obviously, all of the, there's bits of truth in all the lies, right, that we heard earlier. One of the pieces of truth that we heard is that Christian Firth and Cameron McDonald have been buddies for years. And that Christian Firth was bragging to Bottler AI on one of their recorded phone calls that he's been with Cameron McDonald his entire career. But when it came to committee, Cameron McDonald said, I barely know the guy. I've only talked to him once. Well, apparently there was some truth into what Christian Firth was saying, because these guys were obviously so buddy-buddy that they would do that. Now, you have to ask the question, why? Why would Cameron McDonald bother meeting with GC Strategies Christian Firth to essentially fix the contracting awarding process so that GC Strategies gets it? Could it be because there's going to be some kickbacks to Cameron McDonald? That's what we've surmised from the very beginning on this. So there's some smoke there, and Christian Firth seems like a guy that can be pushed around fairly easily. And Cameron McDonald seems to be, a bit more aggressive. So it wouldn't surprise me if Cameron McDonald went to Christian and said, hey, so we have to build this ArriveCan app, and it's going to be really fast, and no one's going to be paying attention because we're in the middle of the pandemic. This is an opportunity for us. So let's work together. Let's put together some requirements for the RFP so that only you would be able to bid on it and get it. And then you're going to give me a little sugar in the end. And then Christian says, sure, that's a great idea. So I'd be willing to bet of all of those millions of dollars that GC Strategies got, it would not surprise me in the least if at least Cameron McDonald got a kickback for that. And maybe people higher in the government. Who knows? Would not surprise me in the least. So this is why all of this is so important. Now, let's get to the housekeeping. I'll go through this quickly. Good to see you, Robert McFallon, with a $10 super chat. This app was just a giant slush fund. We are being led by a romper room government. You can say that again. What else do we got? The Colonel with a $2 super chat. We have, as a gay man, I fully support Pierre Poilievre. That's actually very very good of you to say, because he's gotten a lot of hate from some of the community out there. Okay, Cypher, do the Chihuahua. 1780 watching. Well, we're up to 1838 now.
Yes,
so.
I think you have to. Like, we'll fit it in somewhere funny. But for those of you who are new here, Cypher does this impression of Francois Philippe Champagne. We call him the Chihuahua because he's so petite and he's always like so loud and barky in question periods. So Cypher does a pretty good impression.
Yeah, we'd like to have fun on here, as well as having our
everyone
therapy
informed,
session
yeah.
as we're looking at the government corruption. So I promise I will do it, Humble Tracker. Thank you very much for that. Alice Avonlea with a $5 super chat. JS needs to be quick. I'm calling non-confidence or he misses the boat. Heart Singer, $7 super chat. If Trudeau resigns over this, how does that affect Singh's playbook? P.S. Got my hubby watching hung now. Awesome. So it depends on what goes down. I think Singh has a very slim window of opportunity now, because if this gets even more out of hand, then then Trudeau might dissolve Parliament, and then Singh actually loses all momentum that he would gain from a no confidence vote. So if Trudeau resigns, I think that means the fall of the government, that they would dissolve it, and then that would be it. And then Singh is screwed at that point. And any support that he was going to try to leverage as a result of that and declare victory and say he brought down the Trudeau government is gone. His momentum actually would go to zero, and he's going to have a serious fight on his hands when it comes to the campaign trail. And I think that results in actually more votes going to the Conservatives. So he's in a bit of a bind right now. Dave Stephen with a $5 super chat. Cheers from Sudbury. Love you guys. Sub today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's a lot of great content for you to catch up on. Mitch Meisner with a purchase of a Northern Perspective membership. Thank you very much. Daryl Campbell with a $10 super chat. I hope there's a spring election so that Canada Day can be extra special this year for us all. Cheers to Northern Perspective and everyone here tonight. Cheers to you, sir, and thank you very much. Emthus with a member comment. Wait for it. Pay attention to details. WRT GCS bids. Okay. Ben Russo with a $7 super chat. Thanks for all the great content. Keep it coming. You got it. Tony Pedipus with a $13.99 super chat. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. I'm a moron when it comes to giving more. Still trying to figure this process out. Don't worry about it, Tony. Thank you very much. You showed up. You're liking it. You're sharing it. That's support in itself. Shane with a $10 super chat. Need to listen back tomorrow. Have to be up early to build houses I can never afford to buy, so everyone on welfare can get my money that the government stole to buy their vote. Well, thank you very much for showing up and for the $10 super chat, Shane. We really appreciate that. Rock Monkey. Oh, thank you very much. $7 and looks like a glass of whiskey for Cypher. Thank you very much for that, Rock Monkey. Geese with Teeth with a $2 super chat. I bet the Trudeau fountain made some money. I bet you're right. Margarita Cardoso with a by-election in Durham on, do you think they'll call a full election soon after? It would seem to be not practical. Well,
yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I was actually thinking about that this afternoon, that number one, I'm not quite sure when the by-election in Durham is. Like if it's, today, next week, week after, I'm not sure. But it would be very interesting if they spent all this money on a by-election, because by-elections are expensive. And then we had to go to a general election as well. Or maybe if there's something within the Elections Canada Act that says, if there's a by-election, like so many months, days, whatever, before a general election, then they just keep their seat. That I'm not sure. It's something I want to look into further.
Yeah. So it's a good question. We'll get back to you on that, and we'll talk about it in our next video. Thank you very much for that. Great comment. Tony Koch with a $5 super chat. It is killing me that mainstream media hasn't covered this. Then again, I'm not sure they can spin this into a positive. Actually, this was so big today that mainstream media has covered it. The CBC has even done multiple segments on this. That just shows how big this is. And how problematic this is. So the National Post covered it, CTV News covered it, Global News covered it, CBC covered it on multiple of their broadcasts and on their websites. So that shows you how big this is. The mainstream media is actually covering this. So it exploded today. And they haven't been covering this up to now. Justin Brown with a $2.79 super chat, better than any Canadian press reporter. Thank you very much for that, Justin. Pandemonium with a $5 super chat. Media should be driven by readership, viewership, listenership, not the CBC's sinking ship.
Beautiful.
That was great. You got me right at
Amazing.
the end, Pandemonium. Well done. Jesse Black with a $10 super chat. Thanks, Cypher and Fox, for the great reporting. Long-time listener, but first time in chat. I feel this is the start of the end of the Liberal Party. Can they make it to March?
I don't know. I don't know if this is going to bring them down like right now, or if it'll take another month and a half until they fall.
Well, because Kelly McCauley just he just said today in question period, he didn't even ask a question. He just said, at OGO, we are subpoenaing everybody. Everybody is coming. Like, he literally said that. He's like, GC Strategies, they're coming in. We're summoning them. And former MPs, we're summoning them. Former ministers, we're summoning them. Current ministers, were like, he was really adamant about that. And I think the NDP are going to support them all the way here, because they've been publicly blasting the Liberals about this today. And the Bloc has been publicly blasting them about this today. So I think the Liberals are cornered on ArriveCan, and they're not going to be able to get out of this in terms of the investigations. I don't foresee any more committee shutdowns or anything like that. So this is huge, people. This is a landmark moment in the Trudeau government. Timmy Hill with a $5 super chat. Hey, water Bobcat. Okay, thank you very much for that. And Humble Tracker, true to her word, with 20 Northern Perspective gifted memberships. Thank you so much for that. Willow with a $7 super chat, and one for Fox. Well, Fox doesn't drink whiskey, so Cypher will take that. Thank you very much. Joe Uber with a $5 super chat. Do you think it's going to happen? Trudeau, is he going to continue butchering his political career? Are we going to see Trudeau step down this week? I think Trudeau only steps down if and when they lose the election. But it depends. He could resign if this just blows all the way up and the Liberals, all of the Liberals, just rebel on him. It's possible, but we'll see. But if that happens, the government falls. I guarantee you that. Goko Donnie with a $5 super chat. I double dare the left to pick a play date. It does not end well. If it's certifiable. Yeah, absolutely. DW 134711 with a $13.99 super chat. Keep up the great work. What you're doing. Thank you so much for that. And Fox gifts 5 Northern Perspective memberships. There you go, everyone.
As I promised I would. And everybody, we're at over
2,000 viewers
in the chat. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. It pushes the stream out in the algorithm so that more Canadians can come and watch, because Canadians need to see this.
Jarsha with a $10 super chat, and Humble Tracker with a $20 super chat, saying the same thing. Congrats on 2,000 viewers. It's a long way from our first live stream, only about 7 or 8 months ago. So
with the god awful puppets.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Okay, no more until the next break, and I'll try and make it a long one.
The requirements were very specific and narrow. This gave GC Strategies an advantage that other potential bidders did not have. We also found that the Canada Border Services Agency's overall management of contracts was very poor. Essential information was missing from awarded contracts, such as clear deliverables and the qualifications required of workers. When we looked at invoices approved by the agency, details about the work performed and who did the work were often missing. This greatly contributed to our conclusion that the best value for money was not achieved.
Finally, we found no evidence that Canada Border Services Agency employees disclosed invitations to private functions that they received from contractors, as is required by the agency's Code of Values and Ethics. This created a significant risk or perception of a conflict of interest or bias around procurement decisions. Public servants must always be transparent and accountable to Canadians for their use of public funds. An emergency does not mean that all the rules go out the window and that departments and agencies are no longer required to document their decisions and keep complete and accurate records. As I said earlier, I believe that this audit of ArriveCan shows a glaring disregard for basic management practices. As a result, many questions that parliamentarians and Canadians are asking cannot be answered. The lack of information to support ArriveCan spending and decisions has compromised accountability. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening statement. We would be very pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
I hope so, because there's going to be a lot. Look at, there's a full house in
On the
committee
question, each member will have 6 minutes, beginning with the official opposition. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor for 6, and I understand you wish to split your time. Over to you.
Auditor, thank you very much for being here today. Did Canadian taxpayers get value for money from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government on the $60 million ArriveCan app?
So we concluded that the public service did not ensure that Canada received best value for money. I would tell you that we paid too much for this application.
Boom! Wow. Okay, it sounds like a meaningless statement, but that's the first time we've heard somebody other than the Conservatives say that. That's significant. Wow. This destroys the entire Liberal narrative around this whole thing, folks. Oh my goodness. This is falling like a house of cards, and we've just started. Holy. Okay. Let me get through these generous contributions. Shane Norris with a $7 super chat. That's your first on a super. Thank you very much for that. Crash78 with 10 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Nice to see you back. Goko Donnie with another $20. Thank you so much, sir, or ma'am, whatever it is. Congrats. Thank you very much. Peter G with a $2 super chat. Northern Perspective, breath of fresh air. Thank you very much. And Andrea Farkas with a $2 super chat. Love your work. I look forward to all your videos. Thank you, and thank you. You guys are so touching. Okay. And we got one more from Daniel, 279. Thank you so much. Hard to sweep this one under the carpet.
They'll try, no doubt.
Yeah, when you're trying to sweep a landfill under a carpet, it's not really going to work too well. So let's continue, Mr. Barrett.
You described it as the Trudeau government having, quote, glaring disregard for management practices, end quote, and poor record keeping, a lack of basic due diligence, and that you were, quote, unable to determine the precise cost of the ArriveCan app, end quote. So $60 million is an estimate. Is that correct?
Yes, we estimated that it cost around $59.5 million. There could be amounts there that should not be linked to ArriveCan, but there also could be amounts that are linked to ArriveCan that were not flagged in the books and linked to that project.
So it's reasonable to say that it could be more than $60 million.
It's reasonable to say that we've put together the best estimate, but it took a lot of effort. We had to go through many journal entries all the way back down to task authorizations to see whether or not items were linked to ArriveCan. Professional judgment was needed, yes.
Right, and just to quote the key facts from your report, it says, quote, "This made it impossible to accurately attribute costs to projects," end quote, with respect to the poor record keeping. You've been investigating billions of dollars in government spending over your tenure as Auditor General. Would you say that the Trudeau government's ArriveCan is the worst that you've seen?
So I looked at a lot of contracting that happened during the pandemic, when the public service was asked to act quickly and serve the public. This would probably be the first example that I've seen where there is such a glaring disregard for some of the most basic and fundamental policies and rules and controls.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Mr. Berchtold, please.
So, in the words of my buddy, the Chihuahua, we will take no lessons from the Liberals, Mr. Speaker! We spend money like it's not even ours!
Yeah, they spend it like it's going out of style.
Like, jeez.
Seriously. Like, they have zero respect for taxpayer dollars.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Couple items. Marie Perrin with a $2 super chat. Jagmeet must call non-confidence now. We'll see. Val with a $10 super chat. Fox gets $10. Sorry, Seifel, but you're shit out of luck.
Thank you.
I'll make sure she gets it. Don't worry. Okay. Let's continue.
Mr. Berthold, vous avez 30 minutes.
3 minutes, 3 seconds, Mr. Berthold. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hogan, for your report. I want to say first that I'm shocked and scandalized by the way the government of Prime Minister Trudeau has acted, and I quote your press community. You talk about glaring disregard for management practices with regard to the management of ArriveCan. Now, there was a motion moved by the Conservatives, and we would not be here today and to actually examine the practices of government, and the Liberal members of Parliament voted against the inquiry. And here today we're seeing troubling outcomes. Now, Canadians, did they get value for money with ArriveCan? Our understanding is that the value received is not in keeping with funds spent. The government paid too much for the application, and there are a number of reasons to support this observation. The ongoing dependence on external contractors, the lack of justification as to why they chose a given contractor, and why always call upon resources with 10 years of experience or more. Now, the documentation did not show why it was the right decision, and even with, the lack of competition, the processes, we believe that Canadians did not get value for money.
Okay, so there are some important points raised there before I get to them. Here's a couple of items that want to get through. Craig Simmons with a $7 super chat. Can you have everyone check to see if they are subscribed? I've been unsubscribed multiple times from this channel, even though I'm a member. Yeah, that would be great. If you are or if you should be subscribed to Northern Perspective, take a look and see if you still are. It's been happening across a lot of the channels, including ours, and make sure you're subscribed. Click the notification bell. We actually took a look. Only 16% of our total subscribers actually have the notification bell clicked. So that means 84% of you won't get a notification when we do drop a new video. So have a double check on that.
Yeah, Unfortunately, there is a bug across YouTube. I've been talking with other YouTubers outside of the political realm, and everybody's noticing it. What we have done to try to circumvent this bug, because YouTube doesn't seem to be in a hurry to fix it. So what we've done is on our Discord server, there is a channel called New Videos. And if you turn notifications on for that channel, every single time a video is dropped, every time we go into a live stream, you will get a notification on your phone. There's instructions on how you can do that in our community section here on YouTube. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check it out after the stream.
And you don't have to be a member to see that on the community section. So head on over there after the stream or tomorrow to take a look. Curtis Spence with a $5 super chat to quote Trudeau, "This is garbage," as he tries to sweep the landfill under the rug. Yeah. And to also quote Trudeau, and I'll reflect this on behalf of all Canadians, I'm pretty pissed off about it. Humble Tracker with a $10 super chat, 2,200 watching and 2,000 likes equals more free subs. So what that means, everybody, is if we get to 2,000 likes, Humble Tracker is going to drop some more free subscriptions for everybody, or sorry, free memberships to Northern Perspective for everybody. So we're at 1,767 likes. Get those up to 2,000, and Humble Tracker has some presents for you. $13.99 super chat from Trello Fellow. Great work, folks. Love your channel or love your content. Keep it up. Thank you very much for that. And Tony Raposo with a $20 super chat. We need Canada back to what it was. What's sad is how years it's going to take to fix our great Canada and get back Canada. That JT needs to go to jail. And Adam Kennedy with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much for that. And I agree, but the hard work is going to be absolutely worth it once we get that Canada back to the way it was. So thank you everybody for that. Get those likes up, more free memberships.
Ms. Hogan, you said that concerning the application, you cannot calculate the exact cost because of record keeping. Is it possible that the ArriveCan app cost even more than what you've determined? It's possible that it might have cost less because the bookkeeping I looked at is the worst I've seen in years. The lack of information to support the work done. If it is actually tied in with ArriveCan, I've been left perplexed. And I cannot give you a more exact figure. And I don't know why it's come to that. The record keeping should have existed, and public service in the past has done a lot better.
So the one thing I was going to say, and I actually forgot to say it because I was too busy reading everybody's chat, is this. So what the Auditor General said was, she said she was unclear as to why all of the contractors required 10 years experience. Now, for those that are new to the ArriveCan scandal, and maybe those that aren't, that don't recall, the government has a rating system, and we heard this from Christian Firth.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. And what it is it's a way to evaluate payment tiers for staff, right? So if you have 5 years experience and you satisfy these criteria, you get paid X amount per hour. If you have 10 years experience, then no doubt you're going to be paid the maximum amount per hour. So she's saying, I don't know why everyone would require 10 years experience. I'll tell you why everyone would require 10 years experience, Miss Auditor General. It's because of this. So no doubt what is part of this scheme that Christian Firth and Cameron McDonald have cooked up is that they submitted resumes for all of these staff, and they all had 10 years experience. So that means they're all going to be paid X amount per hour. Now, Christian Firth is then free to go and subcontract whoever the heck he wants. And no doubt he found staff that were below 10 years experience. So instead of getting paid, let's say, $80 an hour, let's say they got paid $40 an hour. Meanwhile, Christian Firth is still invoicing the government $80 an hour for these resources. Why, you ask? So he could pocket the other $40 an hour, and no one would be the wiser. This is why I think he's been doing that. So there would be no other reason for that to happen. And based on Christian Firth's character, based on Cameron McDonald's character, I'd be willing to lay a rather large bet that that's what happened.
Ms. Hogan, in all of your experience with all of the files you've worked on with your team, Would you have ever imagined having found in Canada's public service under this government as bad an example of this glaring lack of accountability? It is surprising to see the extent to which the most basic elementary policies were not followed when it came to managing ArriveCan. Might you ever have thought that you'd not be able to identify who had awarded a contract of, more than $19 million to an external firm? Well, the decision who took the decision, or the evidence to show who took that decision, is lacking. But we have found a description of the work, the requirements to award the contract, and that comes from a ministerial directive. When a public servant exercises their delegated authorities by signing the request, it's accompanied by responsibilities. And I would have expected that if the public servant was uncomfortable, did not want to sign the document, they would have asked their superior or put in the file the reasons for this. But the record keeping is very slim, and important and elementary decisions were not well documented for the procurement file. Thank you, Mr. Berthold.
Okay. Before we go to the Liberals that are no doubt going to be sweating bullets this whole time, we have Alberta first with a $5 super chat. I like your explanations. Thank you very much. That's good. That means we're doing a decent job. Breezy Rat with a $10 super chat. Happy birthday to me. Or rather, happy birthday to you. Best present ever. And that's your first super chat on a live stream.
Happy birthday,
There
Breezy
you go.
Rat.
I'd sing, but then all of the 2,278 viewers would leave, so I'm not going to
Yeah,
do
don't
that.
sing, please.
So Josh Diesel with a $7 super chat. Love watching you, Cypher and Fox. Keep up the good work. I really, really hope there's a spring election. Sounds like the NDP are against the app too. Yes, they are.
Yeah,
And-
I think this is going to make them pull the plug for sure. Like,
And-
not just kind of waffle and be like, well, maybe.
I did think of something better that I can say to you, other than singing happy birthday. Happy birthday, Breezy Rat, because I'm a liar.
And thank you to Sandra Easthope for becoming a NP supporter.
There you go.
Mr. Souza, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for your presentation, your work, and your contribution in trying to determine how best to proceed as we go forward.
Susan, are you going to ask if this isn't about ArriveCan, right?
I wouldn't be surprised, as ridiculous as it would be.
I would pay. I'd give him a super chat to hear him say that.
Notwithstanding the deficiencies that you've encountered, we're more concerned about the pervasive nature of what can take place. And certainly CBSA and the internal review that's being done, they've agreed with your recommendations. I believe they've had ongoing discussions with you to try to find appropriate measures to go forward. But a couple of questions as it relates to this particular instance and point in time. Did resources exist in government to turn around the ArriveCan applications at the time, under the time constraints that were evident?
So we found that the departments the agencies had made an assessment that they did not have the skills or the capacity to deliver the ArriveCan app when we're going back to the early parts of the pandemic. And in my view, that's a reasonable decision to use an external party to help move that forward, given all that was going on at that time. I would have, however, expected to see less of a long-term dependency on external resources as time went on. And we didn't see that transition, whether it be that the public service take over some of the operations of the application, or that there be a transfer of some knowledge or skills so that the public service could be in a place down the line to take care of the application, but then also to demonstrate that the agencies approach this with due regard for value for money. And that transition just didn't happen.
And this is an important point, everybody, because GC Strategies is, to my knowledge, is still billing the government for supporting this thing.
Still.
Still.
even though nobody's using it.
Yeah, because their contractors are the ones that actually maintain it. This is what she's saying. And this explains why in a previous committee meeting that it was revealed that, a couple $1 million in payments were given to GC Strategies last year. Because you would think, well, why do they need more money last year? Well, because the government is paying them on an annual basis support for ArriveCan. And again, they do nothing. What they do is they take that money and then they give a small part of it to the app developers out there that they've contracted to actually work on the thing. And if there's no updates to ArriveCan, guess what? They get the money anyway. And then they pay nobody. That's the ridiculous thing in this whole scenario. So here we go. Margarita Cordosa, $2 super chat. Thank you very much. I wish that guy translator comes back. He's good. Yeah, there's a couple
the Australian guy, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's really, really good. And there's a lady translator who's good as well. She sounds like she's from Quebec, but she sounds fantastic. Mr. Roscoe Pico with a $10 super chat. Thank you too. And Barnaby Humble Tracker, you are unbelievably awesome. Also, all the other members, you all rock. Yeah, we have an amazing community here.
We
and
really do.
We're at 1,911 likes, 89 more likes, and you get a drop of Northern Perspective memberships, everybody. So let's get those likes up. We have 2262 watching. What an amazing night for Northern Perspective. Robert McFallon with a $10 super chat. That dude's suit jacket looks like the shoulders are stuffed with stolen taxpayer dollars. Oh my God. And you know what? It's funny because it's true. Daniel with a $2.79 super chat. No more chalet for you. Nope. Nothing but a cottage.
I appreciate that. And one of the reasons that our committees have been engaged in this file and the CBSA has been doing an internal investigation is to ensure, and one of the reasons it was submitted to the RCMP initially was because of some of the concerns that were shared as well. Have you had a discussion with Ms. O'Gorman or Michelle Lafleur, who's in charge of the investigation and the integrity component of this?
So throughout the audit, I did have a few conversations with the president of Canada Border Services Agency, as well as my Deputy Auditor General. I have not talked with the investigator. The team has seen the preliminary facts, but I didn't want to compromise my impartiality by looking at something that was not yet complete. So I haven't had more fulsome conversations.
And we're concerned about that integrity and that impartiality. We're trying to not to obscure or obstruct the nature of his investigation because he's going into something even more specific about the conduct of individuals as well. And this is the issue that we're concerned about. We want to make sure that people didn't do work and somehow got paid all this extra money for work not being done. Did that come across in your investigations?
So many times when we looked at invoices, some of the most basic support was missing. Whether it be an indication on the invoice as to what IT project the work related to. There were several IT projects underway at the Canada Border Service Agency at the time. And when you don't have that information, it's hard to know when we're looking at it after the fact. What project it related to, and it's also hard for individuals who are trying to maintain accurate financial records to know where to charge that invoice. So really, I think our biggest finding is that there was lack of documentation that should have been there, that traditionally is there to support invoices and task authorizations or contracts.
And this is where the RCMP is going to be so important. And I know there's a lot of mistrust about the RCMP, but they're the ones that are investigating this. They're the ones that are going to be very, very vital to this because there's going to need to be court subpoenas for bank records for Christian Firth and GC Strategies, Cameron McDonald, and everybody else, because that's the only way you're going to follow where this money went. And she's saying there's all this, missing documentation. Gee, it's almost as if people intentionally did that. So it'd be hard to find who was invoiced for what and when. Now, Sousa, what he was looking for a specific answer there. He's saying, well, did you find evidence that, there was a lot of money that went out and people didn't do the work? And he was expecting her to come back and say, no, we didn't find that. But she didn't say that. That's a problem for the Liberals. Because it confirms the narrative that the Conservatives have been saying this whole time. And he's just trying to say, well, you know, we got all your recommendations. It's fine. Like, he wants this to be over as quickly as possible. And when he was on CBC talking about this, he was essentially saying the same thing. Oh, well, you know, she made a lot of recommendations, and yeah, we followed them. And, you know, there's nothing to see here. But it's not that simple, Sousa, and you know it. We are 4 likes away from 2,000, everybody. So let's get those last 4. And Humble Tracker has said that she's going to drop some memberships.
And Milady Loves Cats with a $2.79 super chat also says that she will be matching Humble Tracker's member drop at 2K.
Ooh.
So get those likes up and get some memberships.
Sounds like a challenge to Humble Tracker there. Okay. Colt with a $5 super chat. We're 2 away, everybody. So I'm eating time so you can get those likes up. Off topic, sorry, but do you think the Bloc would vote no confidence? Yes, I do. I feel like they would prop up the Liberal government off the carbon tax alone. No, they would not do that, and we just blew past 2,000. So well done, everybody. You in a minority government, in the back half, you do not, I repeat, you do not cozy up to the government in power. You start distancing yourself from the government in power, because as you move into an election, even though it's, 2 years away,
quote unquote 2 years away.
Quote unquote 2 years away, you don't want to be seen as supporting that government, because the average minority government falls at 2.3 years. That's how long they last. And we're at 2.3 years right now. So that means that this government is, it's a dead man walking. So it could fall at any time, and you don't want to be seen as propping up that government at this point, because it's very problematic for your voters. You can't then turn around and say, oh no, yeah, we were supporting them, but yeah, they're terrible. Don't vote for those guys, vote for us. It's very, very problematic strategically. And Yves Blanchette has come out and said, why would we vote against another budget? Why would we vote for a budget? We have voted against every Liberal budget since they've been in power. So that's the statement directly from the Bloc leader. So thank you, all of you, for getting us past that many likes. And see, it pushes out the stream and brings in more people. So thank you very much for that.
Right, and the most exciting part of all of this is that there's more Canadians coming to learn about exactly what our government has been up to and why we need them out of office.
And looking at possibly the biggest scandal in the Trudeau government. So there you go. Val with a $5 super chat. Cypher and Fox, can you explain how she can lay out so many secrets about this scam and not be reprimanded by the Liberals? Yes, it's because the Auditor General's office is an independent arm. Like they can't do anything. She has autonomy, and her department has autonomy. It's by design, and it's so there can be no interference by the Prime Minister or anybody else. That's why she can do this. And that's why the system is designed like this, so Trudeau can't get his greasy hands into this process. So, thank everybody that was in government way before this who actually set this up this way. Amir Sapasi, welcome to MP Supporter. Thank you very much. And Humble Tracker and Milady Love Cats, we're true to her word, with 20 gifted Northern Perspective memberships each. That's 40 members between them. Thank you so much. And Casper H. With 10 memberships himself, and Adam Kennedy 10 memberships. It's like a Tim Hortons drive-through, everybody. Thank you so much. And those that are getting these memberships, give all these wonderful people some love. They deserve it. Thank you so much. Frank Incense with a $10 super chat. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. Everybody knows Leonard Cohen. Absolutely. Awesome. All right, let's go.
Is it uncommon for TA comes into place, they have a determination at which they wanted to do a contract, they have skills and so forth that they've identified, but suddenly things are moving around, and certainly that was the case here. Is it uncommon for people then to be moved into other contracts and other opportunities? Because I believe the Ombudsman made reference to this quite a bit.
So I would say that there are many reasons why sometimes the resources you listed in a task authorization may not be available, or may be asked to work on different projects. But there are mechanisms in the government to make sure that it's clear that if it's a contract or a task authorization, what work you expect to happen, so that when the invoice comes in, you can validate that the government received the services that they contracted out and paid at the right rate. A lot of that information here was missing. So while you might switch a resource or ask them to do something else, it should be documented. Those are just basic expectations to demonstrate due diligence and prudent use of public funds.
In your report and in your discussion with CBSA, there's some discrepancy in terms of the cost of overall cost of ArriveCan, because you can't reconcile what is taking place here. There's about 16 million or so that they've identified as being other applications. Did you see value for money in those contracts?
So the agency raised concerns around about $12 million that was included in the 59 million. Because they felt at times of a general nature, or it wasn't clear that it related to ArriveCan. And I think that's exactly our main finding, is that their records should be better to demonstrate that. When we looked more specifically at that 12 million, we felt that about half of it was clearly linked to the ArriveCan application, and in fact half of it had been provided to another parliamentary committee previously as expenses linked to ArriveCan. This just speaks to why it's important to document as you go and make sure that the work is clear, and that the evidence that you have to support that work took place is fulsome. Then there are no questions when we come in and look to audit or raise questions around value for money.
And
Okay, so were you going to say something? Oh, I thought I heard Fox say something. So you can see what the Liberals are trying to do here. Their strategy when it comes to this report is they are trying to go the route of declaring value for money anywhere they can. And what Sousa was just trying to do is, he says, okay, so there was like this $16 million that has been identified in the report as for other applications. Did you find value for money there? And he's hoping she's saying yes. And that way he can then come back and say, so even though we're saying the ArriveCan app cost $59 million, we can say that it cost not $59 million, but potentially $43 million. And that's $16 million for other applications. We still got value out of that. So everyone should just take a breath. And this isn't as bad as it seems. That's the route it seems like the Liberals are trying to take here, just based on this initial line of questioning. But it's a Hail Mary, folks. It is seriously a Hail Mary, especially when Karen Hogan's response is, yeah, well, that's the problem. We don't know because this wasn't documented. So I can't tell you. That's the problem here, which means that the whole project was shambolic. Before we move any further, a couple things. Crash 78 with 10 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much. And Sean with a $7 super chat. Why can I see Justin Trudeau proroguing Parliament for 30 days in an attempt to get this out of the news cycle?
I guess it's possible he might try to do that. I just don't think he will, because if he does, it's like a death sentence for the Liberal Party. As soon as he prorogues Parliament to cover up this scandal, they're not getting any votes ever.
Oh, they're screwed.
Yeah.
They're screwed.
Like right now, they're projected to get about 60 seats if an election were called tomorrow. And if they prorogue it, I would be surprised if they even have party status anymore after that.
Because as soon as they come back, there's going to be a vote of non-confidence.
But not only that, but Canadians are going to be livid. Canadians are going to know for sure that they're up to something.
Especially after today. This was ArriveCan Day. And it exploded. It got media attention everywhere. If he prorogues Parliament now, it's obvious why. Right? It is obvious. And he will be screwed even more than he already is. And he's already screwed in the next election. Just a matter of time. So we'll see what happens. Humble Tracker with a $10 super chat. Tears are rolling. Thank you, community, for making this channel so great. Thank you to everyone that can afford to support. Thank you to everyone for showing up. Donations are only a small part of this channel to grow. Amen to that, Humble Tracker. It is actually a very small part of this channel. It's people watching. It is people sharing the videos out there. People liking the channel. That's what really helps us grow. Is you. People. They talk about, I'm sorry, I can't afford to support. But you are. You are when you like a video. You are when you watch a video. You are when you subscribe. And you are when you share it. And independent of that, You are when you have conversations with other Canadians about all of the facts that we equip you with on Northern Perspective. Because it's about spreading knowledge, and it's about spreading the truth and arming you with facts.
And that's how we're going to get a better Canada, is talking to each other, is learning the facts and talking to other Canadians so that we can all come together and make good decisions on Election Day.
We have two objectives with Northern Perspective. A, getting our country back, and B, keeping our country once we get it. So we're sticking around long after the government changes to the Conservatives, because we then need to hold them to account. That's the thing, right? We are behind the Conservatives because they have a common sense platform, and it makes sense. As soon as they start straying off the path, hopefully they won't, we're going to be calling it out, just like we're calling out Justin Trudeau. But fingers crossed, we won't have to do that. Kitty Nukes with a $5 super chat. Check the Trudeau Foundation donations to the foreign aid payouts. Money laundering much. Great job. Appreciate y'all. Yeah, we haven't even had time
yeah.
to actually get to what's going on with the Trudeau Foundation, where it's found that, foreign interference money from China has come in. So
I did see something in the headlines recently. I call it the link dump. There's this place that I just dump all these news articles so that I can read them later, and that's one of them. So we will hopefully get to that eventually, but I have a feeling this is going to be ArriveCan week.
might be ArriveCan year
Yeah.
this week. Peter H. with another 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much. We have roughly 2,400 people watching and 2,157 likes. What a night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Suivant, c'est la députée Vignola.
Next,
Ms.
Ms.
Vignola, here's the block.
6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Hogan, for being here, Mr. Hayes and Mr. Anoush. Isn't it usual that a business knows the requirements, in this case CBSA would include in the definitive version of the procurement proposal? Is it customary practice that the contractor tells an agency what to do? No.
No.
Our observation
Not at
is
all.
that GC Strategies was involved in setting the requirements of a competitive contract. And this, in my opinion, should not have happened. The Canadian Border Services Agency gave a competitive edge to a potential supplier, and it is only GC Strategies that actually met the requirements. The requirements were very restrictive and limited competition, in my opinion. So in regard to those very restrictive requirements, and notably in terms of the experience of the human resources, if my memory serves well, a requirement of 10 years of experience. And then we see later in the report that there were tasks that required 10 years of experience, but which were actually not carried out by individuals that had that 10 years of experience. So what kind of problems can this give rise to in terms of the quality of the work and requirements and so forth? I would expect that requirements when it comes to the skills of the individuals who are going to work on a contract be very clear and be spelled out in the contract or in the task authorization or job description. And we noted that in many cases these requirements were not clear in the contract, nor was there any documentation required to explain why the agency resorted to individuals with 10 years experience or more. So it's normally to get the best value for services rendered for the price paid. All of the resources need 10 years experience or more, but then we saw situations where it was not the case. So I would have expected that the government question why those resources did the work and why the price was so high. So if I've understood correctly, for a contractor who does only the hiring of resources, because that's all that GC Strategies did, says, okay, my resources are going to cost $15,000 a day, and I have a 30% commission, then it would be, advantageous to get higher skilled resources. I mean, if they're suggesting higher skilled resources, the total amount they are going to get is going to be a bigger amount. In this case, it was CBSA that asked that resources have 10 years or more experience.
That's a problem. That's a problem. So this doesn't just put all of the blame on GC Strategies, as we knew, right? So what she's saying is, for these contractors in this experience and in the matrix, it was CBSA that said, no, everyone has to have 10 years. Everybody. Well, here's the thing. The justification from Mindone and Cameron McDonald and Utano and everybody else and the Liberals was, this was a tumultuous time. Things were moving really, really fast, and we just had to get this built. Why would you care? Why would you care what experience people had if your justification is, we have to get this built quickly? Why would you care? Right? And the answer is, you probably wouldn't. You just want to get this thing built. So that doesn't fly. So the only reason that the CBSA equals Cameron McDonald and Tony Utano and potentially Mindone is there's something shady going on. Billing for a resource for 10 years experience, but only actually getting work back from a resource with 5 years experience. GC Strategies pockets the entire 30% of that bill for that resource with 10 years experience, and then potentially pocketing, oh, you know what? I think I know exactly what happened here.
What's that? Tell us.
Just clued in. I think I know exactly what happened. Holy shit, everybody. Holy.
Oh, man, he whipped his glasses off. I know you guys can't see it, but he threw them on the desk.
Okay, this is just a theory. I think I know what happened. Okay, so it's advantageous to GC Strategies to have the highest costing resources on this project, right? Because they're going to get the 30% commission.
Right.
So let's just say $1 million, right? So the resources, they cost $1 million. GC Strategies gets 30%. How much is that?
300 G's.
300,000. Okay. Now, they go out and bring back resources that only have, half the required experience. So they would only cost $500,000, right? The remaining $200,000, that goes to Cameron McDonald and Tony Utano.
Oh, that's plausible.
GC Strategies gets the 30% on the books, and everybody else at CBSA who's involved with this, they get the difference of what those resources should have received.
Wow, I bet that's the scheme.
And this isn't the first contract with GC Strategies.
No.
This is exactly what happened here.
How long have they been doing this to us? How long have they been ripping off taxpayers?
Since 2015.
Ugh.
That's when GC Strategies formed and started doing business with this government. I think that's the real story here.
Wow, I bet it is.
And it's not just ArriveCan, right? It's everything. It's everything. Wow. That's just a theory, folks, but
It seems extremely plausible.
that's the only reason I can think that Cameron McDonald and CBSA saying, no, we need everyone of 10 years experience. Only GC Strategies gets it. GC Strategies gets their 30%, and the CBSA gets the difference on everything else. Jesus.
Wow.
All right, for all you new people, are you glad you came to Northern Perspective? Okay, let's go.
Let's read some super chats.
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay. Who do we have first? We have, looks like Robert McFallon with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. I'm a contractor. I meet tons of new people. If they are awake, I tell them about the awesome work you two are doing. Thank you so much for that, Robert. You're a big supporter of the channel. We really, really appreciate it. Gokodani again with a $2 super chat. Northern Perspective, you are kin. That is all.
Thank you.
We are all related when it comes to the Northern Perspective community. Not in the Arkansas way, though. GJJVB. Whoa. Okay. I'll I'm just going to call you Biv. Thank you very much. Welcome to the membership club. Nux for Cup, good to see you. $5 super chat. This has got to be only the first of several audits of this government's programs in the coming years. No, if I'm the Conservatives, I am asking for an audit on all GC strategies related contract.
Well, and the nice thing is because the Auditor General's office is not, it's not like part of the House or part of the Senate. They're their own independent body. When Parliament falls, they keep doing what they've been doing. They keep doing their work, and then when the Conservative government comes in, they can say, hey, we want you to look at this, we want you to look at that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't stop.
And what else do we got? We got Spudman with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Love the loyal community here. You two have done a great job of making this entire debacle tolerable. but I have a quote here.
What is it that you do?
And just because you sent a super chat, you get the second one too.
What would you say you do here?
But what I can say about the Liberals is...
You will be destroyed!
There you go.
I think he's exhausted his meme cache.
Yeah, there's going to be more. I'm going to be making more. Don't worry about that. Revu Sadie's with a $5 super chat. Nothing like asking for, say, 10 years of experience in an architecture or programming language that only existed for, say, 5. Right? Peter G with a $2 super chat. Good job, Sherlock. Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Louise A. King with a $5 super chat. Cypher, do you think that Larry Brock is aware of what you just said about CBSA? They're smart guys.
Yeah, they probably know.
They're smart guys. But we do know that we have some staffers listening. So, hey, staffers, maybe poke Kelly McCauley on this one. Thank you very much. Jason 007 with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. And Jarsha with a $10 super chat. The other day, Wyatt Claypool at TNT did a video explaining the sponsorship scandal and how ArriveCan might be similar. That brought down a government that had 3 straight majorities, and this is 20 times as big. Right?
Yeah, it's...
Right?
Like I said, I think it's the beginning of the end. I do not think that the Liberal government is going to last much longer. Like, maybe 4 or 5 weeks at the most. I don't think we're going to go till April before they call an election.
So, anyway, let's go.
We wonder why. We would have expected a mix of experience to be able to implement such an application. But there's no documentation to explain the decision made by the agency to require that resource of 10 years experience or more. But would they ask that at a suggestion of another business? Well, the documentation and record keeping is so slim that we're lacking information about interaction and discussions between the agency and the supplier we would have expected to see. I find it troubling. 1.64, there are many very troubling paragraphs, but in 164, you mentioned that there is no evidence of any of the resources qualifications found. If I've understood correctly, that for non-competitive contracts, there's no demonstration needed concerning the resources and their skills. But right after, you say there is no evidence about the requirements in competitive procurement. So you require something, but you don't know if the resources have met the requirements or skilled above the requirements. We don't have requirements in a contract to say what kind of skill levels required. There's no evaluation of the individuals who are being proposed as being the resources in a contract. So we didn't have that assessment in the procurement process. In those that were competitive, we saw the requirement of 10 years experience or more, but without an explanation of the why. So that comes to the fact that decisions made are important decisions when a contract is awarded, and they were not documented in the agency's files.
And what she's saying about documentation is the theory that I suggested. That would explain why none of this is documented as well. Because if there's no documentation, then traceability is very difficult, right? So That just goes to support the theory. Okay, Goko Donnie with a $10 super chat. Cheers. Just a bunch of smiles. Thank you very much.
you.
Just Me Nicole. Nice to see you here, Just Me Nicole, with a $20 super sticker. You are amazing. So are you. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for doing a lot of work and spreading the word to other channels about us. Jarsha with a $2 super chat, and holy shit, almost 2,500 watching. Absolutely. Sean with a $7 super chat. Looks like ArriveCan opened Pandora's box of government corruption. Good puzzle piecing cipher. I mean, Sherlock. Elementary, dear Watson. Thank you very much. Diane Causey with a Northern Perspective membership purchase. Thank you very much. Carolyn Grunland with a $2 super chat. No banjos, please. There you go. Casper H with a $50 super chat. Thank you very much, Casper. To help add to the memes, keep up the good work. We will spend it wisely. Don't worry. Kevin Spiel with a $7 super chat. This is a ring-a-dong ding-dong dandy rip Ed Whalen. Alice Avonlea with a $2 super chat. Game over. Debbie Clark with a $10 super chat. Waving to my cashier at Costco that thanked me for suggesting your channel. She held up the line to say how much she appreciated it and your channel. And the guy behind me that said he would join. Oh, that's so
really
amazing.
cool.
That's
Thank
awesome
you.
story. Thank you for that. That literally made our night. Thank you. Nux for Cup. Welcome to NP Supporter Plus. But time you joined. Never mind. Supporter Plus. Thank you very much for that. Daniel with a 279 super chat. Liberals forgot to fill their TPS reports. Yeah, exactly. They have 8 different bosses. Riding the Pines with a $10 super chat. Good evening. So glad I found you. What are your predictions, thoughts around the if charges will be laid? So much slippery business since 2015. Will someone finally be held to account? Charges are going to be laid somewhere. There's more than enough criminal activity on this. What are they? And who are they? I speculate Cameron McDonald and Antonio Utano.
And Christian Firth.
Christian Firth is a given.
He's boned, yeah.
It's possible that Christian Firth's partner, Darren Anthony,
yeah.
he could be charged with conspiracy to defraud the government of Canada. That's a possible charge. As it relates to any elected officials related to ArriveCan, don't have enough information yet, so we'll be watching with great interest on that. Margarita Cardoso with a $5 super chat. How does the AG initiate an investigation? Does the House of Commons have to ask them? Typically, yes. But I don't know of any scenario where the Attorney General says, I'm going to go and audit them. They would have probably standing schedules of different organizations within the government to audit, but a lot of times it's actually a request for the Auditor General to put their attention. For example, the Auditor General's office was, or a motion was proposed in committee by Garnet Genuis last year, and he tried to get the committee to recommend that the Auditor General audit the Trudeau Foundation. And they can audit the Trudeau Foundation because they are technically a publicly funded organization. And the Liberals blocked it. So there you go. And Listless Receptionist with a $1 super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you. Every dollar is appreciated and every dollar helps. Okay. And we did have a meme suggestion, I believe. Fox, what was that?
That was the scene where Homer's on the floor and he's doing circles going whoop, 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 whoop.
So that's for Trudeau when he's going down the drain.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll see if we can
see what we can do with that. Margarita Cardoso with a $2 super chat. Sorry, I meant how the Auditor General initiates. Well, like she doesn't just decide I'm going to audit the ArriveCan app, right? She has to be asked to do that by the House in order to do that. But then once that has passed. And the only reason it passed, by the way, is because the NDP supported the Conservatives on that. This was a motion in 2022. So there was a motion in the House for the Auditor General to actually do that. And because the NDP voted with the Conservatives, and obviously the Bloc voted with them, that's the only reason this passed. The Liberals opposed that vote, just so everyone is clear on that. They opposed this report even coming to be in the first place.
Of course they did.
So everyone
I'm surprised the NDP supported it.
Well, again, the NDP probably smelled something doesn't smell too good here. So we may want to get on the right side of this.
Yeah.
That way, even if it comes back clean, we're good. But we would rather it come back dirty and us be on the right side of this. So that's probably where that comes into play. And then what she does is she assigns her team, and her team has full authority to go into any government agency and say, give us your books and give them to us now. Give us everything. And you have to provide it. You have to provide it to the Auditor General's office. So they have full jurisdiction wherever they go. You can't say no to the Auditor General. So hopefully I answered that question. Ryan Poplinski with a $2.79 super chat. Taxpayers should get a tax credit for the lost money. You think? Yeah, I completely agree with that, Ryan. It's a good point. And that's why the Conservatives were asking today, how are we going to get our money back?
Yeah, I hope they're able to sue these guys civilly and get the taxpayer money back, like seize assets and all sorts of stuff like that.
Don MR, member for 3 months, says Libs can rename the ArriveCan to Goodbye Can. There you go. Fanny 12 with a $2.79 super chat. This is why Firth makes resumes. Yup, that's his skill set.
So it was done, but we don't quite know why it's done, nor how it's done. Well, it's not required, it's not explained, and then there's no assessment if there's no requirement in the contract. These are the most basic processes when you have a procurement process, and we did not see them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I too want to thank Ms. Hogan, the Auditor General of Canada, for your work in tabling this report. I think it's important to make a mention that your report and the work that your office does is incredibly valuable to this institution and to ensuring that we have an opportunity to rebuild public trust, because your facts here outline, I think, a very disturbing trend and reality that I think Canada will continue to be vulnerable to should we continue on this path. And absent of the recommendations you've made in here, which I completely agree with, I've noticed that the CBSA has also agreed with all of them. But at the end of my remarks, I hope to find ways to go further in that advice to see what systematic changes may be required beyond some of the CBSA changes that look, for example, our public service and the work that they could do. Because you make mention about the deficits in the work that these contractors did that resulted in immense costs to Canadians when we don't deal particularly with the strength of our own public service.
So this guy is NDP, and he almost always is remote. He's always dialing in through Zoom. This just shows that everyone understands the magnitude of today. Nobody is remote. Everyone is in committee.
Isn't he the member for, what is it, none of it? He's pretty far away.
I think so. I can't be positive, but that's why every seat at the table is full. Everyone understands this is a big day, and they know Canada is watching. Before we go any further, Pam PD with a gifted Northern Perspective membership. Thank you very much for that, Pam. Whoever received that, make sure you give Pam a thank you. Humble Tracker with a $6.95 super chat. Might as well cap what I can do tonight. Hope to be live tomorrow. Thank you so much, Humble Tracker. We really, really appreciate that. Margarita Cordosa with a $2 super chat. Thanks for the awesome explanations and commentary. You are quite welcome. Johnny Jordanson with a $2 super chat. Do you think Trudeau will end up in jail? I think the greatest possibility for Trudeau to end up in jail is related to the obstruction of justice that he committed. I think it's quite obvious he did. There's a lot of evidence that he did during the SNC-Lavalin scandal, which the Conservatives have said they are committed to pursuing. So it may be a little later, but it is a possibility. That's the greatest possibility. I think he ends up in jail, unless another charge is revealed. Peter H with a $5 super chat, just because. Thank you so much. Sean with a $7 super chat. To quote the late, great Jim Morrison, this is the end of the Liberal government and all their corruption with any luck. Amen to that.
I think so.
Goko Donnie with a $10 super chat. This gear finder has to be an adult. Cheers. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
And so what I see here is an incredibly difficult and incredibly challenging truth which is facing Canadians. One that is dealing with the terrible consequences of a bloated shadow public service. The consequences that result in invoices that are immense in terms of the duties that they're being asked to do in relation to what they're invoicing for are completely different. And you make mention about that in regards to the 10-year requirement for some projects, and the reality that much of the work didn't require 10 years of service or expertise in order to conduct some of the work that was being invoiced to the government, which created a larger and ever expanding issue of cost. And so I want to turn to the graph outline on page 7, Exhibit 1.2. The Canada Border Service Agency continued to rely heavily on external resources to develop ArriveCan from April 2020 to March 2023. In there, it makes important note of the cost differential between the average per diem daily cost for equivalent IT work. It makes mention that over the period, you estimated the cost for the ArriveCan for external resources was $1,090, whereas the average daily cost for equivalent IT positions in the Government of Canada was $675. In your opinion?
Okay, so unfortunately, it's not like they can show you what this alleged graph on page 7 looks like, but give me one moment on that. Tony Gerasi with a $7 super chat. I have been waiting for Snooza to call point of order. I would like to move a motion to adjourn the meeting for no significant relevance. Yeah, not going to happen.
Yeah, it wouldn't work anyways because the report is out. We actually have a copy of it. So.
Norm Nicholson with a $20 super chat. Ratika Dutt and Amir Morv made all of this possible. Give them a big hand, folks. Kay Bradley Mason with a $1 super chat. Thank you very much. So
you're moving too fast. I wanted to back up and say, yes, Rutika and Amir are amazing. They're the true whistleblowers in this case. They are wonderful, amazing people, and they were actually on CBC tonight.
Yeah, the National,
Yeah,
I believe.
We were talking to them earlier in the evening just to be like, this is amazing. Like, this vindicates everything you guys have been saying. You know, like, congrats. This is awesome. You guys are taking down the government, you know? And if you would like to send them a message, you can actually do so through their website on the Contact Us form. You know, they've been on our show before, and I know you guys have reached out to them before, and they are just always touched whenever they get a positive email and whenever they get positive feedback from anybody, just to say, hey, thanks, this is awesome.
Yeah, so it's it makes their day. It truly is. So anyway, so I'm pleased to show you what Fox mentioned earlier. We actually found the report. So if you want to see what page 7 looks like, here it is. Now, what is this? You may be asking. Well, everybody, this. Make sure I can do this. So what this is a graph that shows money on the left. So this is 500,000, 1 million, 1.52 million, 2.5 million. And this is monthly costs. Okay? Monthly costs that were invoiced to the Canada Border Services Agency based on ArriveCan. Okay? And the greenish lines, that is external resource costs. The charcoal lines, or portions of the lines, that's internal resource costs. So virtually this whole thing was built by, or I'm not going to say that. Virtually the whole cost was charged to external resources, and only a small amount was actually charged to internal. And because normally you can say, you know, this was the majority of the work was built, but we don't know that because we have no way of knowing how much work actually matched the dollar value to this. And that's the whole problem with this, right? But this is where you can rely on us to find this information and to give it to you. And we will be putting the link to the report in the live stream description after this is done. So you can go through it at your leisure. And then you will actually have the same document the committee members have, that the news have, because we believe that you should have this information. This belongs to you as Canadians. So anyhow, that's what he's talking about in terms of the graph.
Would it have reduced the costs to Canadians should the public service had the opportunity to do some of this work? Not all, perhaps, but I do recognize the need at times for contracts. But in this particular instance, do you think that value for money was lost because of neglect to the work that the public service could have done?
So I think here we were trying to highlight, and I want to be clear that it's not a very linear thing. It wasn't, use an external resource or use an internal one, but it was just demonstrating how continued reliance on external resources can start to hinder the value that taxpayers receive for money spent. It was reasonable, in our view, at the start of the pandemic to seek resources or help outside of the public service. What I would have expected, however, was as time went on that dependency would have reduced and that there would have been a transition to internal resources, either to operate the application or a transfer of knowledge. And your question started off with, what could we do going forward as the public service to improve things? And I think having that worked into some of the contracts would be a great place to start, where you recognize that the public service might need to upskill or might not have certain skills that are needed or aren't needed every day. And how do you transition some of that knowledge from the private sector to the public service so that going forward you can have options that are available that might be less costly and then result in better value for money?
And she's absolutely right, because a lot of organizations do that. When they rely on a third party to, heavily to build something, often what is in those contracts is that part of the value that you're getting back as the organization is that third party is going to provide you all of the documentation and train your internal resources on what they did so that you can be self-sufficient as an organization, because otherwise you are completely reliant on a third party and you don't know how long that third party is going to be around. And if you're relying on them for a critical application or service that your business is providing to your customers, whether they are taxpayers or actual paying customers, that's a huge risk and you don't want to be in that position. So that's why they do that. So Mr. Roscoe Pigo with a $5 super chat. If a prime minister was decent at his or her job, should they be at a meeting like this? No, they're not typically at meetings like this.
Yeah, I don't think it's like proper form.
No.
Because they have, they're ministers. Their ministers are the ones who are supposed to be doing the work, and the prime minister is just kind of supposed to be like almost a figurehead and then kind of oversee what the ministers are doing.
Yeah, so so even like if the Conservatives were in government, I would not expect Pierre to be at any of these committee meetings. So, but good question. Paradoxy with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Paradoxy. Great to see you. Good evening, NP family. Want to say hi and cheers to all. Sad I can't be in chat. Busy hands. Cypher and Fox, this money is for your bookkeeper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert McFallon with another $10 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Canada needs ironclad whistleblower protection laws immediately. There are whistleblower protection laws, but I do think we need another look at them. Mike Tremblay with a $2.79 super chat. That's your first on the live stream. Thank you very much for that. And Emile Cruteau with a $10 super chat. Cancel all Liberal passports and lock down all their bank accounts and resources until they have been run through the court system. That's not a bad idea. Ravu Sadies with a $5 super chat. If it is GC Strategies, apparently the number is 8 years. Well, there you go.
Yeah, since 2015.
Yep.
Well, it's, almost 9 years now.
Yeah, funny how they started their company in the same year that Trudeau was elected, eh?
Thank you for that, Ms. Hogan. In terms of, I think there's two aspects that I want to focus on in my rounds to continue. One is on the actual existence of the shadow public service, this network of contractors that seem to have preferential access to the CBSA in this instance. You have noted in your report that there was many instances that there were individuals who received invitations or gifts to events that would have otherwise enabled contact with these contractors. That lack of evidence that is documented suggests that they were influenced by these
That's called
gifts
bribery.
or these events. Would you say that that's an immense concern that you also have?
I think it was clear here that there was existing relationships between the public service and some of the vendors, and that the invitations that were received to attend events are likely more common in the private sector than they are in the public sector, but they exist. And that's why there's a code of conduct. And the agency's code of conduct required that individuals notify their supervisor that they received these invitations. And that's done in order to eliminate real or perceived conflicts of interest and to remove any bias that may have existed in the contracting. We saw no evidence that individuals who had been invited had followed the code of conduct and reported to their supervisors. Perhaps it happened, but there was nothing documented. And so it really raises the risk that there is a conflict of interest or bias in some of the procurement decisions that were done.
I think I probably have to...
Tell you what, you give me this time, I'll give it back to you if you're a little
Deal.
longer next time. Thank you. Turning to our next round, Mr. Genuis, I understand you're splitting your 5-minute slot. The floor is yours.
Madam Auditor General, thank you. I am going to go quickly. Your report found that the average daily pay rate for each contractor and consultant who worked on ArriveCan was $1,100 per day. That seems incredible to me. How do these costs compare to what would normally be paid for people working on this kind of project?
So that's a difficult question to answer when we really just focused in on the resources that we're working on ArriveCan, and that's where the average comes from. As I answered to a previous question, I would have expected that the dependency on those external resources would have reduced over time, but I also would have expected that the requirement to always ask for resources with 10 years of experience or more would have been better documented or justified. A mix is likely a better combination of lesser experience and 10 years or more, and that would have resulted in better value for money for taxpayers.
Thank you. And your report identifies that the $1,100 per day is substantially more than people working inside the public service would receive. Your report reveals shocking details about cozy relationships between the Trudeau government and the contractors at GC Strategies who got the ArriveCan contract. This company was actually involved in the development of the rules and requirements for making proposals. This seems to me akin to having the coach of one of the teams making the rules and directing the referee, an effective rigging of the process. Now, Liberals didn't want this audit to happen at all, which is why they voted against it in the House of Commons. You found that rules were broken when contracting vendors offered gifts, hospitality, and invitations that were not properly reported. So I'd like to ask, how many public servants receive these kinds of gifts, hospitality, and invitations from contractors that were not properly documented or reported?
So I don't have exact figures at my hands, and I probably don't have an exhaustive list, but we did see that it was more than one contractor who invited individuals in the branch that developed ArriveCan, but we saw no documentation that any of those invitations that we saw through emails had been reported to supervisors, and that's what's concerning, is that would have helped the supervisor put in place measures to make sure that there wasn't apparent or real conflicts of interest.
So roughly how many individuals, and also could you provide the committee with a list of names of those who offered and those who received these kinds of invitations?
So we can go back through our file and look at what we have to provide you, but it would be really just linked to ArriveCan, and the department might be able to, the agency might be able to provide you a more comprehensive list if you want to ask them when they're here.
Thank you. If I understood right, though, you are able to go through and provide what you have to the committee on that?
We'll have, but it isn't in any way comprehensive. We'll see what we can provide you.
And just a final comment, I think the reason this is important is because it's clear from what we're hearing from the government that they are trying to use an internal investigation to pin this whole affair on one or two individuals. But the investigator who is supposed to be undertaking their internal investigation is actually subject to the existing chain of command. So that process is just as rigged, just as susceptible to influence as the original bid was. And with that, I'll end my time.
Thank you. Ms. Kuzi, you have the floor now for 2 minutes.
Okay, so Mr. Genuis, laying it out pretty straightforward there. That's why I didn't stop it. I think it's fairly straight there, but he raises some good points, and I think it's telling that the Auditor General doesn't have the number off the top of her head. That means it's it's more than a few, probably. So that means there is not an insignificant amount of bribery going on between the contractors. And she also said it was more than just one contractor. So that means it's more than just GC Strategies. So isn't that interesting? But the other one that I know that was contracted for this is, who would that be? Cordex and Dalian. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were the other contractor, or at least one of the other contractors that was offering bribes to these government people. And we also heard that they flat out broke the rules. So when everyone was testifying, oh, all the rules were followed, you frickin' liars. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And Jenny said, well, the government's going to try and pin this on two individuals. I agree with that. Their play is probably going to try and say, naughty, go after Cameron McDonald and Utano, but it doesn't end with them. Guaranteed it doesn't end with them. It starts with them. But this is going further than this. I guarantee you that. Absolutely guarantee you that. So let's get to some super chats. But before that, Jason007, welcome to NP supporter. Thank you very much. Well, Kowalchuk, nice to see you with a $5 super chat. I would like to know how the legacy media will handle this when Pierre is so calm, cool, and collective and slams their every move. Well, you saw a little bit of it today. If you haven't seen our video on that, take a look because it's already started. Brenda Weeb with a $2.79 super chat. Thank you very much. This Auditor General best not be fired for this. I don't think they can.
No, she's appointed by some sort of council, I believe. So I think everybody on the council would have to.
I think she's appointed by the Privy Council.
Yeah.
And the appointment is for 10 years. So when you accept the position of Auditor General, you accept that position for 10 years. That's a long job. John VB with a $20 super chat. It took me a year after the Freedom Convoy via Clyde to get to Northern Perspective and a bit longer to join. My first. Love the coverage, enjoyable, engaging, true value for my money, and more importantly, my support. Thank you so much for that, John. That's actually really nice to say. Thank you. Goko Johnny with another $2 super chat. Go Team Canada. Amen to that. Just me Nicole with another $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Corruption is the real pandemic. Yes, it is. And the Liberals are the virus.
So we've established that this goes far beyond the existing criminal investigation, that there were existing relationships that you indicated, Auditor General, that could have provided bias or leaning towards serious contractors. My colleagues have established that there was no value for money for Canadians here. An app that was supposed to cost $80,000 ending up costing $60 million. We see $60 million spent, $12.2 million, potentially unrelated even to this application, 18% of invoices by contractors who did not provide supporting documentation, and even work being completed without security clearances. Regarding the contracting, when we look at all this, when we look at all of these discrepancies, this incompetence, possible malfeasance, who is fundamentally responsible for the contracting, Auditor General? Who has the final say on overseeing contracting for the ArriveCan app?
Okay. What Kuzi is trying to do here, this is the final link. She's trying to get the Auditor General to say a minister, an elected official in Trudeau's government, so they can then turn all of the sites of the ArriveCan investigation to the elected officials in Trudeau's government. That's the play here. So let's see what happens.
So I would back it up to say fundamentally that the deputy head, in this case the president of Canada Border Services Agency, is responsible for all decisions that are made within the department. That being said, there are delegations of authority that go to other layers of the public service. And I draw a difference between individuals who do the work and then individuals who oversee and make decisions. And those individuals are usually in management, director, DG, assistant deputy minister level. And they set the tone for making sure that policies and basic requirements are followed. And we just found a glaring disregard for that here. We could not find documented evidence as to who made the ultimate decision to choose a vendor or why that vendor was chosen, but we did see a contract requisition that was signed by an executive director in the department. In my view, a public servant who exercises their delegation of authority, signing on something, comes with a responsibility and accountability for that decision being made. And if they feel that they've been pressured or didn't want to make the decision, that they should have informed their supervisor or they should have documented, there are recourses that public servants can take if they feel that they shouldn't be exercising the delegation of authority that's granted to them.
And thank you very much. That is your time. Ms. Killey, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay, so she was very careful in her response. What she did say is that's ultimately the president's, responsibility. But I think what the Conservatives are going to be, the stance they're going to be taking here is, well, isn't don't the agencies report into the ministers and the buck stops with them, and then the ministers report into Justin Trudeau and the buck stops with him. And that would technically be correct. So the ministers have to be making sure that their agencies are operating correctly, and especially when you have a project as high of visibility as ArriveCan was, you can't tell me that Mendicino, who was the minister at the time, wouldn't have been constantly asking for updates on this, right? This is probably the most, I would say, visible app that the government has ever produced, and it was in the middle of the pandemic, and it was for the pandemic, allegedly. You're going to tell me that Mendicino wasn't asking how it was going and he wasn't getting status updates on this? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So that's the avenue that I think they're going to take. Light Giver with a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Do you think we will see some firings or suspensions within the next couple of weeks? Maybe.
Possibly. I know. I have a feeling that McDonald and Utano were kind of the orchestrators of most of this, and they have been suspended. And I imagine that they're probably going to be fired soon.
Yeah, they'll be fired, most likely charged, and then whatever happens with that, they may turn into canaries at that point and start singing for the RCMP. We'll see. But it wouldn't. I don't know. It's hard because you have some of the players like John Osowski. He's gone, right? He's the president at the time, and he would have been ultimately accountable from the agency perspective. So he's moved on. Funny that, eh? After ArriveCan ended, he moved on. Seems a little strange. Diane Daly moved on. She's over at Health Canada and went over there with Mr. McDonald. That's interesting, eh? But she's still over there. And Utano went over to the CRA, and McDonald went over to Health Canada. So,
but it feels like, to me at least, the problem is that these guys do something unethical, questionable, illegal, and they just kind of get recycled into a different department.
Well, that's the main problem with the government is you have terrible employees, and then they move on to another department, and everybody washes their hands with them. So you end up with perpetually terrible employees within the government of Canada being paid far too much. That's one of the main issues. Blaine Ricca, welcome to NP supporter. Thank you very much. And Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. Mendicino likely stole as much for the $60 million as he could. He is slime. Wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Auditor General, for this for the important work that you've done. Now, you've suggested that the value for money was not achieved. Did you also investigate the cost of using paper processing versus the cost of using ArriveCan over time? I know that on the CBSA website, it indicates that paper processing would have been almost $95 million versus the cost of the ArriveCan app. Looking for your thoughts on that.
What kind of paper are you guys using? $95 million. Come on.
Yeah, but this is the thing. The Liberals are going to be trying to squirm their way out of this to try and, show that, yeah, well, even if it did cost that much, it's still cheaper.
Is it gold leaf? What is it?
But this is where this isn't going to fly, right? Because I'm sorry. You're trying to justify, even if it was $60 million, it's still less than the alleged $95 million. It shouldn't have cost $60 million. That's the problem here. That's the problem. And that's why Canadians are pissed. It's because you've already stolen so much of our money for this government that we live in tent cities. You have 2 million people at a food bank. We can't afford our mortgages. We can't afford our rent. We can't afford anything anymore. And you guys don't respect any of the dollars that you get. And the minute a government stops respecting the dollars that the Canadian citizen gives them, that's when we need a new government. And before we move any further, Robbie Saves with a $2 super chat. Both exited out with a lovely golden parachute. Yeah, exactly. And Dan Meehan with a $5 super chat. Great job, Northern Perspective. Thank you very much.
So we did conclude that the best value for money was not achieved here. There was some value.
Yes.
And I'll point back to our report in 2021. We issued 2 reports looking at border measures. The second actually noted that because of ArriveCan, the government was able to improve the quality of information collected from travelers, and they were able to follow up with travelers in a more timely way. Now, there were still many travelers that weren't followed up, but the app sped up the process, the paper process that was originally there. I would add that there is also an enduring value to this application, as now CBSA has sort of springboarded off what was done here to automate the border, something they had been working on before the pandemic, and they use this as a sort of a springboard to go there. So there is some sort of enduring value left post the use during the pandemic. We did look at what it might cost for a piece of paper versus automation, and it really isn't a linear calculation. I think we would have probably landed somewhere around $3 or so for a piece of paper. But again, I think it's more about the quality of the information and the timing, right? The paper was making its way to the Public Health Agency 28 days after an individual had crossed the border. Really hard to follow up on a 14-day quarantine. So, the value, I don't think should be quantified, but should be in the fact that there was a more timely follow-up with travelers during the height of the pandemic.
So I like that she pushed back on the whole value proposition. And, it shows her objectivity where, she's been pretty damning early on, and she's saying, but, there is some value to be talked about. And I guess this is the difference, right? So they made an app and it's designed to speed things up. And did it do that? Yes. Did it make tons of errors and send 10,000 people into quarantine when they shouldn't have been? Yes, absolutely. And that's a problem. The main issue here is how much does did this thing cost, and did it even work? So, yeah, she says enduring value. What she means by that is, is the CBSA going to be able to transform the existing ArriveCan app into just like a customs app? Yeah, they can. But who are they going to pay to do that? Right? You saw the chart. There's nobody at the CBSA allegedly that's equipped to do that, so they're going to have to spend more money to do that. This is the problem. So, she is being objective, so I wouldn't throw any vitriol her way, because this is what her job is to be as objective as possible as an independent department. Vesper Design with a $10 super chat. Curious what the Auditor General for Arrive scam, the federal court's indictment on the EA, and the Ethics Commissioner regarding SNC Lavalin says to all Canadians about Trudeau and the Liberal Party right now. Yeah, pretty curious as to what they would all say, other than this government does not deserve to be in office at all. Leo Orchard with a $5 super chat, but a retracted message. Looks like you're having a little trouble there, Leo. Just tag Northern Perspective what you want to say. Don't bother about sending another super chat, and Fox will get that and read it out. Jag Bando with a $5 super chat. It's clear that Cypher and Fox have over 10 years of experience and continue to provide value for money to us. And yeah, but we don't invoice you, so that's the difference. Ronan Harkonnen, welcome to NP Supporter. Love the name. Pendome, I wonder if you're excited for March. Was it March 1st when the new Dune movie comes out? Or is it March? Yeah, I think it's March 1st. Should be a good one. Pandemonium with a $5 super chat. I'm not convinced it was an error. How much money did the libs make off of the quarantine hotels? Well, that's another subject entirely.
In your report, when you identify that this is the overlooking of it is based on efficiency, about the value and effectiveness of the app itself, would you say that between the paper-based and the automotive, that there was value there?
Well, as I said, there was some value. I would tell you that the government was effective at delivering on this app. It was done very quickly, quicker than you would see most things. Was it efficient and provide good value for money? That's where I would tell you no. The government has paid too much for this app. The public service should do better going forward on projects like this.
Too bad, Khalid. You're trying to fish for it, but she's not giving it to you. Good answer, Karen. Very good answer. John VB with a $5 super chat. Cost and paper must include the rush for toilet paper that happened during the lockdowns. Yeah, and the cost and toilet paper that noted the Liberals are all dealing with on a day-to-day basis right now. Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. Great to hear Vesper in the chat. Yes, indeed it is.
Now, you had also, I outlined that you were very concerned that one of your main concerns was about the poor record-keeping practices. Now, are you concerned that there is widespread corruption that is ongoing?
I think the confusion that we saw with the record keeping, and I would tell you that it's probably some of the worst record keeping I have seen in a long time, is because there was no documentation outside of record keeping. When an individual receives an invoice and it's not clear what app a worker was working on or what IT project a worker was working on, it's very difficult to allocate it in your records to the best place. And we actually saw journal entries where items were being moved around, and we needed to trace back through many steps in order to get to supporting documentation. At times it was very clear that it was linked to ArriveCan. Other times it required judgment to know whether or not it was of such a general nature that it should be associated with the ArriveCan or not. So it is about, making sure that the public servants have the information they need to make the right decisions. And in this case, there was a disregard for some of those really basic elements that we traditionally see.
Now,
do better.
You are in communication with the CBSA president. Are you satisfied by the steps that have been taken so far to fix some of these practices that you've outlined?
Man, they are reaching. So now Khalid's taking the approach, well, there's already some recommendations that the CBSA, advised, and they're taking those recommendations. So can't we just put this to bed and stop talking about it, please? And she's trying to say, oh, the Auditor General satisfied with all the recommendations, so there's nothing else to talk about here. That's the angle they're trying to get. They're trying to reach for any talking point that they can to say that this is over and there's nothing else to see here.
Well, sure, because they can't dismiss the witness. They can't shut down the meeting. Like, they're in a corner. They have nothing else to do.
So we haven't really looked at the steps that the agency has taken since. I do look at the fact that they're receiving many recommendations. There's recommendations from my report, recommendations from the ombuds. I would tell you that they're aligned and complementary, and the agency has a lot of work ahead of them to ensure that what I would think are some of the most basic elements around project, contract management, and record keeping need to be fixed.
And do you think that people working from home or working remotely had an impact on poor record keeping as well, or do you think that this is just an oversight on the part of the public service?
Well, I believe that the public service was trying to act quickly in an emergency. And I would tell you that while they were given flexibility from Treasury Board Secretariat to reduce some of the normal processes and red tape, it also came with a reminder that exercising due diligence and demonstrating prudent use of public funds should be done. And I think here that, an emergency was not an excuse to throw out the window the basic rules that the public service normally follows. And I would expect better from the public service, and I have seen the public service do better.
Thank you very much. Suivant, c'est la députée.
Next, Ms. Vignola, 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Thank you very much, Ms. Hogan. Under 167, we see timesheets that were given, and you see authorizations and signatures, but there's no detail as to the work done. So were these timesheets all from the same business, or was this a generalized problem? And was it always the same persons providing the authorizations? No, it was not always the same business, nor was it always the same individuals approving the timesheets. In some cases, we saw it very well done, and in other cases, a lack of essential information that should have been included. It is not a best practice to approve timesheets and then after the timesheets are provided as justification for invoicing. It should have been the contractor who approved the timesheets than a public servant. We also have cases where task authorizations, you have deliverables that are unclear. You don't know what the purpose was, what tasks were to be carried out. And yet, this is provided to GC. Now, what is this? Just a big open door to abuse? In my opinion, it is not flexibility. Flexibility might skip a couple steps, but it should not serve to remove essential information to manage a contract or to manage a project or to be truly accountable. If it's non-respect of essential elements that we should have seen in the procurement process and project management process, there are also contracts that were modified and signed off by CBSA and PSPC, but they did not contain any modifications in the tasks. But in terms of deadlines and cost, there were changes made. Is that something you see often in your analyses? Well, that's another of our observations in support of our conclusion that the value received for funds spent should have been better. Extensions are reasonable. It's reasonable to see extensions granted. Normally, that should not be for changing deadlines or changing the cost of a project. If there are increases, there is because there's a new deliverable added. But oftentimes, we did not see that it was due to an increase in tasks, but rather to push back deadlines. And that's what increased the cost. And that's why the value received was not the best. Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Deschalets.
2 seconds, just so you know, it's not a lot more, but I'm mindful to give you the time you're owed. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do now want to turn to the findings under 1.56, where you found that GC Strategies was involved in the development of requirements that the Canada Border Service Agency ultimately included in a request for proposal. A deeply troubling fact that I think Canadians, we need to reflect on. The ability of private actors to directly influence the competition of a bid that they are participating in. Massive, massive red flag in my perspective, because not only is it an abuse of the rules and regulations that exist for competitive bids, but it masks the true intent of the public service in some ways, which just prior, and to use this as an example, there was 3 non-competitive contracts held by GC Strategies prior to May of 2022. Is that correct?
So it's a good question that the NDP is raising, and But I hope somebody ends up asking this question, because so fine, the private contractor is influencing what's going into the contract. But the missing question that needs to be asked here is, what benefit is the person that's in the CBSA getting from that? Why would they do that? There must be a very good reason. And that goes back to the theory that they're getting a kickback. So I hope that question ends up being asked. The Architect Gamer, Arctic Gamer 59, nice to see you in chat. $2 super chat. Seeing the Deadpool 3 trailer. It's a must watch. Haven't seen it yet, but I will in my quote-unquote spare time. Leo Orchard with the $10 super chat. Love your work, guys. As an English immigrant, the only solace I can find in Phil's part in this is that it might be a fellow Englishman who brought down this corrupt JT government. Right? Nice. Isn't that funny that that Mr. Swiss Chalet himself might be the guy responsible for bringing down the government unintentionally. Hunsford, good to see you in chat with a $5 super chat. Morning, I'm watching from work again. I shall be watching comfortably at home tomorrow. Thanks for everything, as always. Namaste. You as well. Thank you very much. Ravu Sadies with a $5 super chat. I kind of feel like the idea of ministers being able to offload their departments to bureaucratic executives who have no accountability needs to stop. Well, that's the thing. They shouldn't be able to offload responsibility, because they are responsible and accountable for these agencies performing. I think they need to pay a lot more attention to that. Brother Mycroft with a $5 super chat. In less than a month, both the federal court and the Auditor General has found the government to be criminal. Yup. Yup.
Yeah, that's a short span of time.
And Diane Sylvain with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you so much, Diane. Hope your mom's still doing well.
Yes, that's correct.
And then to follow that, we witnessed CBSA then undergo a competitive process, replacing those 3 non-competitive contracts by then selecting the very same contractor that was the recipient of the contract in the non-competitive process. Is that true?
Yes, I think in this case, the contractor was involved in setting some of the requirements, and that should not happen. That really does limit competition. We found that the requirements that were used were so restrictive that the only vendor that responded to the request for proposal was GC Strategies. And so the Canada Border Services Agency gave them an advantage that other bidders just did not have.
And what evidence did you find in your review of this work that demonstrated that connection between the influences that CBSA would have had on the public, the GC Strategies had on CBSA? And what information? Was it emails? Was it text messages? Was it documents? Was it letters that you found evidence to suggest that there was a direct influence here?
So in this case, it was correspondence, emails between the vendor and individuals who were setting out the request for proposal.
Please ask who it is.
It was exact word for word requirements that were then used in the process. I would also point you to the Procurement Ombuds report, who outlined many other requirements. We just gave you a sample of some. But these were all very restrictive and likely limited competition, and in the end did, as the only vendor who responded was GC Strategies.
Wow. You have a brief question, Mr. Desjardins, but it would need to be brief.
Sure. In terms of those documents, would it be possible for some of that correspondence related to the example you outlined here to be shared with this committee in advance of our further studies?
We can go back through. I think it might already be shared with other parliamentary committees. We can go back through our file and
that
see
means
if we
Ogo
can
has it,
locate
everybody.
that, although we will be here tomorrow, so I'm not sure that we'll get it to you in advance, but we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gee, any bets on Christian Firth and Cameron McDonald? Just saying. Will Kowalchuk with a $5 super chat. I would like to thank all in chat for all you do, and Northern Perspective for all the content that we all need to know. Thank you so much to all. Big thumbs up in chat. Yes, thank you everybody. 2,581 likes. What a stream. Vesper Design with a $2 super chat. Cypher should change his name to Siphon. You'll have to explain that one.
Thank you very much. Turning now to Ms. Block. You have the floor for 5 minutes. I understand
Kelly
you're
Block.
sharing your time as well, but over to you.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Hogan, and to those joining you for being here today. You know, from the beginning of the Government Operations and Estimates Committee study into ArriveCan, we have been told by Liberal members across the table that there was nothing to see here, and in fact, you could probably look at past committee studies or meetings to see that that is exactly what they said when we were undertaking or wanting to undertake this study. Little did they know, I guess, that you would find, and you have mentioned several times, that there was an alarming lack of documentation throughout the procurement process for this app, which I think is in keeping with what the procurement ombudsman stated in his report. So time and time again, we have heard that we should cut the public service or servants some slack because it was during the pandemic. And we even heard it today in regards to public servants working from home. Do you believe the glaring disregard for basic mismanagement and contracting practices, as well as the lack of documentation, can be sufficiently excused by the fact that it was during a pandemic?
No, I said it in my opening remarks. I do not believe that an emergency is an excuse for throwing the rules out of the window. These are some really basic elements that I would have expected to see. Documenting a decision on who is being selected and why they have the skills to carry out the work that you need done. Basic bookkeeping factors that I would expect to see. Invoices well supported, making it clear what work should be charged to what project that's ongoing. I think that my advice to public servants would be to document as you go. And we saw other contracts throughout the pandemic, while had opportunities for improvement, were not as glaring as the lack of documentation that we see.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's your signal, Mr. Brock. You've got the floor for about 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Thank you, Chair.
Uh-oh.
From $80,000 to approximately $60 million, and probably going to be continue more once we get some documentation. It's now abundantly clear to Canadians why the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau and its members did everything in their power to shut down your audit. They voted against your audit. They routinely shut down committees. Just last week, they shut down the committee that you and I were involved in when it was revealed that the RCMP were investigating. All of a sudden, they brought a motion to adjourn. And just last week, a release of the preliminary report by the CBSA investigator was too scary for some Liberal members, and they required a complete shutdown of witnesses to study the ArriveCan. So it's abundantly clear what they were trying to hide. This is a gross misuse of taxpayer funds. You indicated the public service should do better. This is an example of the worst record-keeping practices that you have seen in your tenure as the Auditor General. Do you believe there should be, in terms of moving forward, the CBSA has promised to make recommendations, to follow your recommendations for changes internally, but to the Canadians who are watching this, who have now realized that this government has abused and misused their taxpayer funds, what civil and criminal consequences should befall this government?
You gonna tell me the Conservatives are not listening to people? And I know you're not, but that right there, they are listening, folks. They are absolutely listening. They hear that Canadians are fed up with the corruption that is going on in this government. I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Brock over the phone about ArriveCan.
And we got to meet him back in the summer, too. Seems
yeah.
like a pretty cool guy.
Let me tell you, over the phone, he is as straight a shooter and straight answers as he is like in committee when he's talking. Just saying, like there's no difference, no difference at all. And I believed him, and he was anticipating my questions and answering them even before I asked them, because he knew where I was going. So it was really, really refreshing to hear. And he cares about justice. He's a Crown prosecutor. He cares about justice. I think every Crown prosecutor cares about justice. And he's asking a good question here. So going forward, what do we get out of this, right? Yeah, Brock might even be in chat. Who knows? If you
that
are,
would be
hi, Brock.
amazing. How cool would that be, though, if there was like an MP sitting here watching us?
It would be super cool.
That'd be wild.
Fox and I fantasize about Pierre watching the channel sometimes, but anyway.
That'd be cool.
Anyway, let's see the answers. Actually, before that, I have some homework to do before we get back into Mr. Brock and the answers that he is soliciting from Karen Hogan here. So we have Rhiannon Gadsden with a $7 super chat. Thanks for all you do to keep us up to date as possible. The Liberals are keeping you hopping. Yes, they are. This is going to be an exhausting week for us, so hopefully everyone has some patience with us. The content might go, it might decline as the week goes because we're going to be more and more tired from...
Well, I'm going to have to stock up on more caffeinated chocolate.
Caffeinated chocolate, yeah. Repeat in BC with a $5 super chat. I don't know about y'all, but me, I'm going to vote in advance polls and spend all election night right here following NP. Good plan,
awesome.
Because we are doing the same thing for the advance polls, and we're going to be live streaming the entire day as soon as the polls open. It's going to be a great time. Pinky Moslayer with a $10 super chat. Can't stop the Brock. Amen to that. And Dan Meehan with a $5 super chat. Another $5 for the Brock. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So matters of a criminal nature and decisions in that respect rest with law enforcement.
Yeah, exactly.
In this case, the RCMP would be the experts to tell you what action, if any, is needed. That is not my place.
GC Strategies is under RCMP investigation, not for the ArriveCan app, but in relation to another application involving a software company out of Montreal and the government as well, including the CBSA. That's the focus. The RCMP has never been focused on the ArriveCan app. During the course of your investigation led by Mr. Hanoush, shared to you, Ms. Hogan, and to Mr. Hayes, did you uncover elements of suspicion with respect to GC Strategies that warranted a potential referral to the RCMP?
So this is a bit of an unusual situation. Normally when we're in auditing, the RCMP has not been referred matters. So in this case, they were referred in a matter around contracting. I am not aware if they've begun an investigation or where that investigation is going. So I didn't have to turn my mind to, do I need to decide if there are other things I should refer? I did have a conversation with the RCMP, and it was a very general one because our report was not yet made public. It was made public today only. I told them that if they would like to have access to our file, that they should send me an official request to do so, and we would be happy to provide them with any of the evidence that we have.
And thank you very much. I'm afraid that is the time. Ms. Yip, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
It's been quite the morning. Thank you for coming. So my question is, why was the CBSA-owned procurement directorate not involved in the contracting process?
That's an excellent question. I'd encourage you to ask Canada Border Services Agency. Many departments have their own procurement arm that is there to help ensure that policies are followed and best practices are there. Oftentimes they might work with Public Service and Procurement Canada to ensure that there's good competition and the best value for money is achieved. But what we found here in this case was that individuals were directly working with Public Service and Procurement Canada, and that they weren't always involving their own procurement directorate. And we made a recommendation around that being a best practice that really should be used. They're there because they are experts in contracting and can help ensure that a contracting file is well supported of all the decisions that should be in there are well documented.
In terms of user testing, 12 out of 25 did not complete user testing, and 10 out of 13 had user methodology, but the testing results were incomplete. Why did this happen?
Oh my goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, the Liberals sent somebody in with pre-written questions and she has no idea what they mean.
Wow.
You can't make this stuff up. Yeah. She has no idea. No idea what she's reading. And I don't know why she's reading it. Why are you asking questions about user testing? This has nothing to do with the price of tea. This is... It almost feels like she wandered into the wrong committee. But ladies and gentlemen, this is MP Yeep. Thanks for coming out, because you are just making your party look that much more ridiculous on a very serious day. What could be the fall of the Trudeau government as a result of what happens today. So, a couple of super chats to get you. Diane Sylvain with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. I told Brock on his YouTube channel that I would come out of my retirement to help prosecute ministers with him, Freeland and Trudeau, etc. Let's see if he takes me up on my offer. I will do it for free, no contract necessary. Well, Diane, actually, what I would suggest is you can actually call Brock's office. So go to his page and look him up, and contact his office. Ask him for a call, and you'll be able to actually speak to him and give him your 5-minute pitch and see what he says. That'd be interesting. An interesting anecdote to see what two Crown prosecutors chat about with this. But you can give him a call, and we'll see what he says. Gary Krell with the 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much for that, Gary. Much obliged for that. And Robbie Sadie's with a $2 super chat. Oh, we're getting tired now. Poor Jean Yeep is being thrown under the bus. Yeah, 100% she is. I almost feel bad for her, because she is literally being, marched into there. No idea what these questions mean. She is reading them just off of the page, and I don't even know what she's gonna do with the answer that she gets.
So this is really a best practice we would have expected to see when there is an IT project. So in this case, there was 177 releases to the application. We focused in on the 25. So the numbers that you're referring to are really what we focused in on, which was their 25 major releases, which meant that there was a significant change happening to the ArriveCan application. You would normally expect to see a plan for good user testing to ensure that the application's operating as intended, and that you would document the results of those testings and any corrective measures if needed. When we looked at those 25, we found that 12 of them actually had nothing documented. It doesn't mean that testing didn't happen, but there was no proof that testing had occurred. What the risk is there is that you release an app that isn't functioning as intended, and in fact, that's what Canada saw at some point when 10,000 travelers were incorrectly told that they needed to quarantine.
I am so glad she brought that up. Okay, so what Karen is talking about is, there's no record that testing occurred. So typically in IT projects, and even non-IT projects, but you have a QA team. QA, for those that don't know, but you probably do, so apologies if you already do, stands for quality assurance. Okay, everyone has heard of that. Now, when it comes to like laboratory work or IT work or anything where you're developing a project that requires testing, usually if you have a very good QA team, what they do is they develop a test plan. And that test plan is built against the requirements that you actually have in the project. Remember, we talked about the project manager and their role earlier in the stream. So all of those requirements, they become deliverables. So, for example, the ArriveCan app, it has to accept information. It has to transmit information. It has to present a form field. It has to present, different screens. So the test plan would be mapped against that. So one of the tests is, when I click on this icon in the ArriveCan app, does it take me to this screen? Yes. Perfect. So that's where the test plan comes into place. So the test plan maps out all of the objectives, and then you create test scripts that are given to your testers so they know what to do. And then they record the outcome of those tests to actually confirm, did that function work? And then once you compile all of the test scripts against the test plan, you can then say, does your application or service or drug or whatever it is, does it work? Make sense? So the fact that she's saying that there's no documentation on an app that had the potential and did put people into quarantine, that's outrageous. It's not surprising given what we know now, but it is completely outrageous when it comes to this stuff. So that's why this is so important. And yeah, middle of a pandemic, nobody cares. Nobody cares it was in the middle of a pandemic. That is no excuse to not follow your procedures. If anything, if you're in a national emergency like that, that is all the more reason to follow your procedures and rely on what you have, because it's chaos. So what do you do in chaos? You fall back to what order you have, and that is your procedures. Doesn't matter the company, doesn't matter the demographic, doesn't matter the industry. That's what you do. There is no excuse for that. Pink Emo Slayer, $2 super chat. The liberal bus goes round and round. It sure does. N2N6A4 with a $2 super chat. The one time we actually need a Karen. Amen to that. Daphne Divine, nice to see you. $5 super chat. I can handle slow, but stupid, not so much. Yeah. Well, we're all suffering at the same time, so no problem. Pink Emo Slayer with $5 super 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much for that, sir. Make sure you give Pink Emo Slayer a pat on the back for that, everybody.
And so we would expect that the department would have done all this testing and documented it well before releasing a change to the application.
How were procurement contracts decided to be tendered on a competitive or a non-competitive basis?
So that decision usually rests with the department making the decision. There are many reasons why you could choose a non-competitive contract. They're allowed in the procurement policies and directives. But when that happens, you would expect that you would clearly have documented your interactions with the vendor, and that you would have also documented clearly why you chose them. Typically, to go non-competitive, there needs to be a really good, valid reason. And in this case, there was very little documentation as to why GC Strategies was selected and how they could fulfill the requirements of the contract.
I can create some documentation why they were selected.
Okay. How much time?
About 90 seconds.
Okay. So in terms of...
where's your notes, Jean?
Was there a deep lack of documentation? I guess, there is obviously not enough documentation in books.
Right there. She just realized, oh, this is a stupid question to be reading because you've already answered this. Maybe I should do more than just read the questions off of the page that I was given.
Bookkeeping practice and other places, other departments, there were. So what do you think made the difference in these bookkeeping practices?
So it's a question, again, I think you should probably ask the department, but when we spoke to many people, what we heard is that they were in the pandemic. It was a never before seen situation. The public service was asked to act quickly to support Canadians. But the basic elements that we would have expected to see just aren't there. It's a head scratcher for me as to why they're not there. I've definitely seen the public service do better. And it isn't just around contracting, but it was around project management, no oversight and no budget. It was around user testing on the applications. There was so many key elements that I would have expected to see documented that just aren't there. And when you don't have the records, many of the questions you're asking just can't be answered.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is the time. Auditor, I want to thank you and your team for coming in today. Look, I've said this before in private, but I do appreciate you coming before this parliamentary committee, arranging your office to be here for the lockup this morning for parliamentarians. That is invaluable to us. And then coming to committee with your opening statements and to hear directly from lawmakers. I know we're going to see you again tomorrow, you and your team, along with departmental officials. We look forward to that. And with the committee's approval, I will suspend or adjourn this meeting. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you again.
Okay, everybody. That was something. That was something. Yeah, I think I can shoot my appreciation to Karen Hogan on all our behalf. It's nice to see some objectivity come through as it relates to an actual report and an audit in this government. It gives us some hope that there's some good public servants out there that are committed to actually doing their jobs and doing their jobs well. And this just adds some more confidence also to the SDTC scandal that's going on at the same time. Remember, everybody, there's a whole other scandal with the $1 billion slush fund in the SDTC scandal that we're also covering. That is a very bad day for this Liberal government, because it was recently exposed, as we showed in a recent video, that the elected officials knew of conflict of interests that Annette Verschuren had when she took over the SDTC, and subsequently stole $210,000 of taxpayer money, and and we don't even know the depth of the other money that they gave to all these companies that were ineligible. It was over $40 million that they handed out to these companies that shouldn't have had the money. So, there needs to be questions asked as to, so who benefited and why? These are the questions, right? When you follow the money, you then have to say, okay, so we know where the money went. Why? Why did it go there? Who benefited? Why would they do that? And these are the questions that we're kind of missing here. I'm hoping we get some of these questions tomorrow when Karen comes back. This is just one scandal, the ArriveCan scandal, the SDTC scandal, the SNC-Lavalin scandal, the foreign interference scandal that has been plaguing Trudeau, fighting against the public inquiry, which we finally gotten. It kind of got off the ground with a whimper, but it's going to be meeting again in March. So this is all coming into a head in March. And we started talking about this back in May. So as people have said, this feels different. But we're going to be back here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be going over what happens in committee tomorrow. Tomorrow, Karen is there for 2 hours, so expect the stream to be a little bit longer tomorrow. But we're going to be here to translate and to interpret what they say. So all of you and all the Canadians that are watching the stream after it ends, you all get the full picture of what's going on, because that's what we do here at Northern Perspective. Can't thank everybody enough for joining tonight. We had around 2,500 members top out. That is...
It's record smashing.
Yeah, it's 900 again, more than the previous record.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this because that's 2,500 Canadians who are watching and observing and seeing what our government is doing and what they're doing with our tax money.
Yeah, and the one thing that I did want to comment on, so thanks, Frank, for talking about it. Karen did say that she told the RCMP if they did need her report, it's at their disposal for evidence. And no doubt they're going to say, yes, please. That would be wonderful. Or they're going to say, actually, we have all this evidence already. But why would the RCMP say no to any more evidence, right? So, the Auditor General's office, that didn't come up here, but Andrew Hayes, her Deputy Auditor General that was sitting to her right, our left when you're looking at her, he had said in a previous committee that whenever they find elements of criminality, they report that to the authorities. So if they did actually through their audit here, find elements of criminality, they would have actually already reported that to the RCMP. And no doubt that's where that conversation was had. Well, if you need a report, let us know, because we have found some evidence of criminality there. So,
and speaking of that report, we're going to be putting it in the description of this live stream. After it's over, it turns into a video, and we'll put it in the description so that you guys can go read it if you like. Yeah, just to give everybody another quick look at it, I will show it to you right here. So this is the report. COVID-19 Pandemic Report 1, ArriveCan. And there are lots and lots of pages. 36-page report. It looks like it's been written to be very accessible. There are some graphs in here to see. So it is pretty straightforward, but we're going to be going through that probably over lunch tomorrow, and that'll equip us very well for the second live stream that we're going to have on this tomorrow night. So can't wait to see everybody back. A couple more super chats to get to before we close it out. Just want to make sure that I get them. So Rabu Sadies with a $2 super chat. This is almost painful to watch, referring to Jenny Yeep. I don't disagree at all. Brenda Weeb with a $2.79 super chat. A beer each time Karen gives it to the libs. Oh, I think we would all be drunk on the floor. Will Kowalchuk with a $10 super chat. I had an older friend that had to buy a laptop to get back for Florida and needed help to computer illiteracy and was held up for 2 weeks. This is wrong. Yes, it absolutely is. Thank you for that. So, thank you, everyone, for all your contributions. Thank you for all the memberships. We gained over 203 new memberships this stream. Thank you, everybody, for that. And here's to truth, and here's to informing Canadians. And an informed voter is always dangerous to a corrupt government. So the more people we can inform, the better chance we have of bringing this government down. Diane Sylvain with a $20 super chat. I think it's not a bad idea for folks to call their MPs and say they expect justice, which starts with the RCMP doing their job. Not a bad idea there, yeah, Diane. That's a great idea. And you can also send them a letter mail, paper mail, and it is free to mail something to your MP at the House of Commons. So you just need their House of Commons address and slap their name on it, and you don't need a stamp.
So, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. We'll see you back here tomorrow. And as always, we'll see you in the comments, have some conversations with some Liberals, try and change some minds, and come back tomorrow and we'll give you some more committee and continue our coverage on the ArriveCan app. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, Nillik with a $2 super chat. Last chat of the night. See you tomorrow. I sure will.
Good night, everyone.